Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Legends Library. Today we'll be covering issues number 11 through 20 of Star Wars Legacy. And of course, I'm Cade, joined by, as always, Tristan.
Hello.
And yeah, there really isn't a lot of preface for this. I already got everything out of the way, so let's jump right into issue 11, which starts with a really cool vision of Cade on Ossus while he just did some death sticks.
The first note I actually have for this is terrifying CGI covers.
Oh yeah. For all of
I don't,
two of the issues.
Thankfully, only two. The rest of the covers are actually really cool, but my god, these are terrifying.
Yeah, the Cade one, it's not that bad because it's from kind of far away, but yeah.
The Yusavong lady in the second one, who I will make no attempt to pronounce the name of.
Yeah, well.
It's,
Yeah, well.
But Ossus.
Yeah, Ossus looks very good in all of the panels, especially in the opening. You get the cool shot of the Jedi Paraxium, which is obviously where the Sith attacked in the very first issue.
And we're back here, and Cade is wasted on death sticks.
Yeah, it is a very cool vision where Mara Jade just shows up, and obviously Cade knows who that is.
I saw the death sticks everywhere, and I knew this was going to be a hallucination, but I was also really confused at the same time. It's like, wait, how can Mara Jade be back? Because I'm just a fucking idiot. But
yeah,
it is cool, especially drawn by this artist, because I really like the artist for these comic books.
Yeah, no, the art, again, I think we mentioned last time, the art is it's very good, all the way around. But I guess since you mentioned the death sticks, are you kind of in? Are you in more Cade's tripping in this scene, or are you more he's having a force vision? Because I was always kind of under the impression it was a force vision, but I could definitely.
It could be. I assume every single one of these people have figured out how to become a force ghost, but it could be either one, I guess. It could be actually them being here. It could be a force vision. It could be a death stick hallucination.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely evidence for both, but regardless, it's really cool. And then obviously, Anakin comes in and then kind of morphs to Darth Vader, which I personally am not a fan of, especially if this is a Force vision, because I don't like the idea of Anakin coming back as Vader in a Force vision, considering he was redeemed.
I wish we would have gotten more out of Anakin in this state, but it makes me think it's more of a either like a warning vision or the death sticks rather than them materializing as Force ghosts.
Yeah, I could definitely see that
because he immediately becomes Darth Vader.
Yeah, I do like how Vader basically says that what Darth Vader was is part of Cade's legacy and also part of his destiny, which is probably a bit of foreshadowing as to what happens a few issues down the road.
Yeah, it gets mentioned quite a lot about his lineage and how he kind of feels trapped by it because it has this really bad history with Darth Vader being the scariest man in the galaxy for about 2 decades. So
yeah, but obviously, Cade basically tells the Vision to F off, and he doesn't believe in any of his destiny.
Which is a recurring theme with him.
Yeah.
And so we have this very weirdly drawn Darth Vader stab him in the chest. And it actually leaves a mark in his armor, which is also confusing me. The extent I like it because it's like playing with, is it an hallucination? How real is it? But It's very strange.
Yeah, one small
And I like
one small detail that I really like in one of the panels, you can see that Cade and Vader are wearing the same pants.
Yep, he's got Vader's pants. I actually really like the aesthetic of it. Palpatine and Luke both have it in Dark Empire. I just like how it
Yeah,
looks.
they look like some comfy pants.
But he is literally. It's like a. To sound like a pretentious English teacher, he's like half dark and half light because he has Vader's pants on. So it's
Yeah,
symbolism.
subtle, very subtle of having evil pants.
So Vader gets blasted back into nothingness, and we get our old buddy Kirk
Yeah,
back.
who of course, as we all know, will literally never die.
He's better at surviving than Darth Plagueis ever was.
Yeah, I mean
Or
he
Palpatine.
literally has an almost throwaway line of how he's died like many times in his life.
How many times has he died? Because you have Grievous, and then you really think kills him, and then he just goes into a sleep. I haven't read the Dark Times comic books, so I don't know if he quote unquote dies there.
I think in the Republic comics, isn't he assumed dead at one point? I haven't read those, so
I don't know either, but
yeah, it's definitely a meme that
either way,
Kirk is he's a survivor with a samurai hat.
yeah, he's very
Yeah,
old.
yeah, because by this point he would be definitely over 100 years old, which I guess by Star Wars standards isn't like crazy old, considering we have species like Yoda who lived to be 900.
And Nettie, who can live centuries, who we'll get to in a moment. But it's nice seeing Kirk back. He's been around since. This isn't too far ahead. This is 2006, but he was introduced in the Old Republic comic books. Not the. I mean,
Yeah,
the Republic.
the Republic
comic
comics.
books that
Yeah,
came out around
yeah,
Phantom
those were like 99.
Yeah, right. I think they started just before Phantom Menace because for some reason they were putting Cal Mooney on a pedestal, and I don't know. But it's cool seeing him back. Cade doesn't think he's real at first.
Yeah, well, he just basically did Star Wars math, so he's tripping out, had a
Yeah.
Force vision kind of thing, but yeah, Crook heals the like wound in his chest, which I think the wound isn't actually there, and I don't know. It's kind of confusing because why would Cade have a stab in
I
his
think
chest?
it's like, well, Vader stabs him, but I think it's just like residue from like hallucinations. Kind of like how like you'll have like Batman with Scarecrow who sees like these monsters or whatever, and then they claw him, and it's actually caught in real life. But it's, I guess it's like a representation of the sickness it's giving him, and Kirk's healing that, and then hallucination fades.
Well, maybe Cade was just tripping so hard he literally just stabbed himself with his own lightsaber.
This is also possible.
But yeah, he heals him, and then
But
yeah, like literally, like Kirk just says, what makes you think I'm not real? And then it kind of fades from winter to not winter, which I really like that shot.
I didn't even notice that, but you're right. The snow just disappeared.
Yeah, so apparently confirmed that the snow was a hallucination, but Kirk was not. If that's the one thing that his mind like materialized, I guess.
Death sticks are some heavy shit. But Shadow Veo and Wolf Sazin come into the picture again.
Yeah.
And Cade doesn't really know what he's doing here. I don't really know what he's doing here. It's a little confusing.
Well, they kind of talk to it. I don't think it's in this issue, but I think in a couple issues, you get into it. But yeah, Cade kind of just out of the blue is like, I want to finish training as a Jedi, and then it basically cuts away after that. After Wolf agrees to continue his training.
See, he's being an annoying little druggie because he'll say that he wants to be a Jedi again, but he's also just coming back from tripping on death sticks. Cade's a junkie and it's annoying, but I still love him.
Of course. But yeah, then we cut over to Socorro, where Delia, Blue, and Dry Sin are kind of having a spat over Cade leaving them, and they go to they go to, God, what is his name? Rav.
Rav.
Uh,
with his golden chicken foot.
Yeah, and all his, swag, all his armbands and tentacle bands on his head and his golden tooth.
His species is just Nautilin without a nose.
Basically, and blue.
But I hate Rav and everything about him.
I think that's the point, because he's a literal bad pirate.
So Delia, Blue, and Sev come in, and he greets them and deceives them with a job and credits, only to reveal them to Calixte, who's under the Empire, of course. They've been ratted out. Calixte takes them into custody because of Cade and the Bothan Jedi. There's a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, this part is really kind of dialogue heavy, because they have to explain that they're being taken captive because they're looking for Cade, and yeah.
Calixte is a conniving bitch. We know this. They get captured. And then
we cut back to everybody's favorite junkie Jedi, doing basically just some Jedi training stuff, and we get a nice little aside between Kakruk and Wolf talking about Cade reclaiming his legacy, which I really like, because I like both those characters, and just the way that they talk to each other, it seems like how two Jedi Masters would talk to each other. Like, the characterization is very, very good for those two.
Oh yeah, I like all of these characters, really. Which is rare for me, because usually there's only a few Jedi who stand out to me, but all of these seem very unique to me. I especially like Cade's relationship with Shadow, because they do feel like brothers.
Yeah, they like, again, like, characterization being on point. Like, it seems like they've known each other since they were like little kid, because they basically just play a game of hide and seek.
Especially like how it's drawn with Shadow hiding in the bushes.
Yeah,
and he says, "Find me," and then he's just disappeared in the same frame. But
yeah, then they basically go, I'm assuming, to like a crappy part of the Praxium that was obviously damaged during the attack on Ossus, and they fall through the floor.
And the land in a storage house?
I think it was probably supposed to be like a hidden thing where the Jedi kept old artifacts. But
I don't know if this is a Vong thing, because the way Ossus is drawn, and I don't know if the Vong terraformed.
No, I think that's just how Ossus always was.
It varies in depiction so heavily, because we have like Tales of the Jedi where starships are just pirate ships.
Yeah, that's true, and
so it's not really consistent.
Yeah, I think this is eventually how it kind of gets established, though, a little later on, I think, especially in like the post era of the comics and stuff that came out after Tales of the Jedi, because Luke resets this up as a part of the NJO, and then eventually relocates their entire like Jedi from Coruscant to there in the Fate of the Jedi series. So this eventually becomes kind of the headquarters of the Jedi, but then it is mentioned a couple times in the comics, I think, that basically they eventually move back to Coruscant too.
Yeah, Cade even refers to it, the Jedi Temple on Coruscant as his home later on.
Yeah, but
they fall through into the storehouse, and it kind of looks like something out of H.R. Geiger's Alien, because it has like secreted resin for walls. It looks like an alien hive with a bunch of Jedi artifacts inside, which is fitting, because then they're attacked by Yuuzhan Vong.
Yeah, they get attacked by a couple warriors, and At the end, it would have been if I hadn't read this before. It would have been a good cliffhanger because Cade clearly recognizes Nirin. I think would be how it's pronounced. Yeah,
right.
Nirin. He kind of recognizes her. He's kind of in the middle of a dialogue and cuts himself off while they're fighting the Vong. And then the issue ends, which would be a really cool cliffhanger if nowadays everything wasn't like immediately available.
Okay, I actually don't know who this character is. Is she previously established?
As far as I remember, no, but I actually am kind of in the process of rereading the NJO books. So if she shows up, it hasn't been in a book that I've read or reread in the series yet, but I think she was made for Legacy.
That would make sense. She would also be really old.
Yeah, that is true.
But moving on to the next issue?
Yeah, it opens and basically Nirin just calls off the two Jedi. And I one thing I do appreciate, and this is me being a big fan of the NJO and the Yuuzhan Vong, the Vong always called Jedi Jedi, and I appreciate just that little small detail that they brought that along.
I'm not a huge fan of the way the Vong are drawn here. I like the this is official artwork, but it's of Nominor, and he looks more skull-like. But I definitely prefer this over the turtles that they take on later on in some other series.
Yeah, that's the Star Wars Invasion. The art in that series is, in general, not the greatest.
Yeah, they look like pale Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but this is fine, I guess. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, well, the thing with the Vong is, well, one, they were originally kind of described as skeletal, and then they basically got into, there are different appearances that the Vong can kind of take on because of the whole, self-mutilation and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like these ones because this is kind of my preferred version of the Vong versus skeleton heads. But again, that's just me. It's all personal preference. I love the Yuuzhan Vong, and the thing I do like is they made all three Vong looked very distinct. Like Nirin has kind of like a different colored hair, and one of the warriors is bald, and the other one has like long black hair. So they didn't make them all look the same, and even down to like their tattoos are all unique as well. And one of them has like a hair lip.
Oh yeah, one of them doesn't have a lip at all. They all have Nobi Sunrider's hairline, at least.
Yeah, well, the Vong. One thing that the Vong were always described as having like a big sloping forehead.
Nobi Sunrider was a Vong all along.
Yeah, advanced scout by 5,000 years.
But then we cut to. Unless you have any commentary here, but we cut to the restoration.
Yeah, basically, I was just gonna say they kind of just you get the nice realization from Nirin that she remembers who Cade is. But yeah, then we kind of just cut off to the explanation of the Ossus Project, which is basically just kind of Cole Skywalker specifically spearheaded it to bring the Yuuzhan Vong to a point where the galaxy at large didn't absolutely loathe them for killing billions of people.
This is true, but unfortunately, they get sabotaged, which we know to be the Sith at this point.
Yeah.
And Nirin has this little moment with Cole Skywalker that I think is actually pretty interesting, where she's actually crying at the sight of his dead body after he dies sacrificing himself.
Yeah, which I mean, like for a Vong, that would make a lot of sense because obviously the Vong kill a lot of Jedi in the Yuuzhan Vong War, and the Jedi kill a lot of Yuuzhan Vong. But it's really cool that Cole is such a good guy that even though the Vong killed billions of people, I think maybe trillions was the total body count of the Yuuzhan Vong War. that obviously this affected Ni Rin and probably just a lot of Vong in general very greatly because he was, I think it's mentioned a lot of times that he was like the only person who was like behind this idea at all.
I think you're right, but it's like the ultimate Jedi forgiveness.
Yeah, and then they burn his body, which is a nice touch because they give him the Jedi funeral, and then his body disappears, which is kind of the Qui-Gon Jinn treatment, where he doesn't immediately become one with the Force after he dies.
It's very inconsistent, but you know what it's
like. But yeah, then we get again how the Vong were protecting the Jedi legacy, and they talk about it back and forth, and Cade, of course, rejects it because that's basically his MO is, I'm not going to follow my destiny because see where it's gotten my family in the galaxy where he's the last Skywalker.
Yeah, definitely. He's spent this entire run so far running away from his legacy. And it keeps trying to catch up to him. And, he's as conflicted as I am because I still don't know what he wants, and he doesn't know what he wants. Because Wolf Sazon says that he came here to die on Ossus, but also he wants to continue his training as a Jedi. So, he's very conflicted.
Well, I always thought that basically once he got found by the Jedi, it's kind of one of those things he did to basically hide the fact that he was basically suicidal. And he's like, oh, yeah, I wasn't here to die. I want to be a Jedi. And then, all this stuff happens, and it basically resets him back to zero, where it's like, he's back in the slump. But then they kind of have a discussion and a fist fight, and then they talk about how Cade ultimately is just upset that, like, his dad doesn't basically talk to him.
Which he is revealed later on to be able to like represent himself as a Force spirit, isn't he?
Yes, that happens in this half of the series. But then you get the really nice like master student talk where Wolf talks about how it wasn't easy for him after Cole died either, because obviously they were like BFFs.
Yeah, well, Cole trained him,
Yes.
didn't he? Yeah. So they have a similar relationship to Cole.
Yeah.
And they get to bond over how much they miss him. After they have a pretty brutal fist fight in which Wolf Sazon puts up a really good fight for somebody who only has one hand.
Well, when you're a Jedi and you have the whole Force going for you, it probably helps out a lot. But yeah, because I'm assuming he was a righty, and so he had to learn to fight one-handed with his bad hand.
Yeah, they Jaime Lannistered him, and like he's just like beating the shit out of Cade too.
Well, yeah, because you get the nice little aside by Cade where he says that he always had a hard way of telling the truth, even when it hurt, and that this time it hurt a lot, as he's kind of like rubbing his jaw. I don't know. There's lots of like really good, like subtle kind of comic relief moments that kind of break up the kind of seriousness of a lot of these stories, and I think it works very, very well. It's like it's not always like right in your face, like here's C-3PO and R2-D2 doing something wacky. It's like it's kind of just like a little joke that someone would actually make if they got punched in the face.
Oh yeah, I love all the banter in the series. It comes off as very natural. And it never like comes at the cost of like the tone of the series at all.
Yeah, it works very well. Like I said, it's not like C-3PO and R2-D2 falling off a sail barge. Yeah, then we get Cade has this cool little vision about where he's floating up in space after Ossus, and we kind of get his little well, not really a vision at this point. It's the flashback of how he basically came to know Darius Sin, and then he basically vouched for him and saved him, and this is kind of like they even say it in the comic, like this is where they kind of like become brothers because Jiraiya saves his life, but then we get this really like brutal for Cade panel where he's standing over his father's dead body, who he just saw die, probably like, I don't think it was very long. And like Cade's standing over his father's dead body, and Rav is basically shit talking the Jedi to someone he doesn't know is a Jedi, obviously, and how they're born with nothing and they die with nothing, and that the Jedi are dead, and where's their ally, the Force, now?
Yeah, Raph is just a piece of shit. I hate
Yeah,
him.
they did a really good job of making him just unlikable. Like nobody likes Rav. Not even Cade and his crew like Rav. They just work for him because he pays them.
And they're constantly in debt to him
Yes.
as well. Which speaking of, it's never explicitly said how early on Rav gets Cade addicted to death sticks, which is a really scary prospect for me. Because it makes me think that he's gotten him addicted and in his debt for God, since how old is Cade? Like
It's
15?
never like explicitly stated, but I think later it's expanded that he's like 14 when Ossus falls, and then there's the 7-year time jump, so he's like 21 during the actual like timeline of Legacies. But yeah, he's like 14, basically becoming a pirate.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder how early on Rav got him addicted to death.
Probably 5 days after he got on board the ship, because he's a piece of trash.
God, I hope he dies later on.
But then we get Cade. This is where he has the vision I was thinking of, where he kind of sees Hosk Trayless in the cool lightning vision, but then it like morphs to Darth Krayt, and he realizes that he has another Force vision with Luke, which is always welcome, because the Force visions with Luke are some of the most iconic things from the series.
Oh yeah, even if you haven't read Legacy, you've seen the scan, the comic book page where Luke is talking to Cade.
Yeah, but I really like how Luke says that he's not here to remind Cade of his legacy or anything. He's just here to remind him about the one guy that he sold out to the Sith for money, and he's basically probably being tortured right now, and that it's his responsibility to save him.
Yeah, I would have let him die, which sounds terrible, but I mean, at the same time, the capital of the Sith, Darth Krayt, Emperor there. I've had like 15 years of Jedi training and 7 years afterwards where I haven't done shit. Probably not going to go there, especially when we learn later on that Trayless has already told Krayt everything.
Yeah, but are you saying if Force Ghost Luke Skywalker didn't tell you to do something, you wouldn't do it?
I'd probably take death sticks, but seeing as how he's fresh out of them, I guess he has to feel guilty.
Yeah, so then the next day, Cade leaves, and then you get the really good, like, I just love this scene where Ni Rin gives him his father's lightsaber, and I love the design of Cole Skywalker's lightsaber, how it's like kind of Anakin looking, but not completely.
Yeah, it's also very ergonomic.
Oh yeah, it's basically Anakin's without the giant box on it.
God.
Yeah, I really like that, and then I like R2 being in this series is like fan service done like perfectly. Like it's not made to be like a huge deal. Like and then you get some kind of like Han Solo-esque banter between Cade and R2, and I really like that. That, you know, even though this droid is like well over 100 years old, you know, he's still kicking around, which obviously makes sense because it's a droid.
Oh yeah, it's very nice to see R2 getting berated around instead of 3PO, because I feel so bad for 3PO.
Yeah, no.
He gets treated so poorly. But even a character with like no dialogue other than Redeep and Bedoop, R2 has so much character, and they work off of one another.
Yeah,
really well.
and again, I just have to say, but like this is like a good way to introduce like a big fan favorite character. Like he's not thrust in the spotlight. They don't spend, you know, like for a lot of the shots, he's not even in like the foreground. He's always like behind Cade or in the corner of the panel.
Oh, he's barely in the run, at least as far as
Yeah,
I've read.
which again is perfect. Like he's there, he's doing R2D2 stuff, but R2D2 isn't the main character.
Yeah, he's not overshadowing anything.
Which then leads to issue 12, which again, the openings of these issues or issue 13, excuse me. And as always, the openings of these issues are always really, really good.
Except this one.
Oh, that's right. Forgive me, everyone, but I forgot that I read mine in omnibus order, which for some reason put issue 13. So I was talking about how cool the opening for issue 14 is. Issue 13, however, opens... Issue 13 opens on a planet called Munto Kadru, which sounds like a Star Wars planet, where some 4-armed clan leaders are... Like, the plot makes sense. Like, they're talking about whether they want to basically support the Imperials or the Sith. And then there's a Sith, Dark Cruel, who's destroyed some droids and kills him, and his dog or his son. The dialogue is very weird.
I assume it's his dog, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who whips out knives against a Sith Lord.
Yeah, he makes really short work of him, and it's not worth talking about because it's very inconsequential, and I don't think it ever comes up again. But
yeah, in the 8 issues I've read after this, he doesn't come up, and I don't think he's going to come up.
But then after this, we get to go do some cool stuff as Darth Cruel boards a Star Destroyer, which has a really cool name, and it's the Dauntless. I like the Empire in this run. The Empire isn't evil, but obviously Galactic Empire is evil. But their aesthetic and their like overly evil ship names are really cool and fit their aesthetic very well. And
I've always liked the aesthetic of the Empire, but I actually really like it in Legacy because it feels different, but it's also the same.
Yeah, my absolute favorite thing is how I love the Pelion class Star Destroyer, and they're my favorite big capital ship because one, they're named after Gilad Pelion, who's the coolest Imperial, and they look really cool by being they're tall. And instead of being a triangle, they're like an arrow point, kind of. And again, it's different, but similar.
They look more like an arrowhead, where the original Star Destroyers are more like a
triangle
piece of.
Yeah.
It's flat sides. It's whereas the original Star Destroyers have a bit of thickness to them. Yeah,
they aren't. They're like Star Destroyer sized, but they're taller, like height wise. But yeah, they look really cool. But that's enough about me fanboying about the Pelion class. And Darth Cruel is basically given the task of assassinating Roan Fel. He infiltrates his bamboo garden where he's meditating.
This issue is just so influential that I feel like the dialogue that's on at the end is just to convince us that it's not a complete waste of time, but I'm really thinking that it is.
Yeah, well, regardless, I think that it's a really fun fight between the two of them, and I like how I like how it shows that Roan Fel isn't just like a sit on the throne emperor, and he's like a fully trained Imperial Knight. And even when he always has a backup, which he eventually says, but he shorts out Cruel's lightsaber with a Cortosis gauntlet, which I think is awesome. And yeah, and then
explain what Cortosis
is. Yeah, you get the nice little every time explanation of Cortosis to the guy, which obviously it's obviously for readers who are like, how did this guy just block a lightsaber with his arm?
Yeah, every time Cortosis comes up in a Dark Horse comic book, someone pointed this out to me. They have to explain it in depth of what it
Yeah.
does. I think it's done in the Clone Wars. I think it's done in the Purge comics. It's done here.
Yeah. Regardless, I think that Roan Fell just acts like a total boss, and he shoots Cruel with a holdout blaster, and he has an awesome like 1980s like Die Hard like one liner where he says, "I believe in having backups," after he shoots the guy.
Oh yeah, it's good to see an Emperor who's like, you could see he's like a frontliner. Like even Crate says in the beginning of Legacy that that the Emperor's fake because Rowan Fell would have put up a fight.
Yeah, which
Which is
would have been really cool.
it really
But again,
yeah speaks highly of
yeah.
him. Also, something else I noticed: Darth Cruel has a metal lightsaber.
Yes, I have always thought that's really weird because every other one Sith, including Darth Krayt, has a Yorick Coral lightsaber, but Darth Cruel apparently is the one dude who just has his own regular lightsaber, which I'm assuming was just a mix-up on the artist part because this artist is obviously not the one that does the rest of these issues.
I'm inclined to agree. There's also one other Sith who comes up later. The one that spoilers bombards Ossus, or the temple rather. He also has a metal lightsaber, and I can't remember if the artist is the same on those or the pencil or whatever. But I think it's just a mistake.
Yeah, which
But at the same time, Crate also has the Yorick Coral saber.
which isn't a huge deal, but it is kind of eye-catching if you notice the detail of one Sith Lord's lightsaber. But again, that's why we're here.
Yeah, I think it's just a mistake. But
yeah, then basically, Antares comes in. Fel tells him that Crate sent him a message and that he's going to send one back. So he sends the Imperial Governor, who was so unimportant that I didn't even write his name down in my notes, which makes me feel bad. He sends him back to Crate, and he's killed by Maladi, and she tells Darth Crate that this was all part of her plan because now Fel's going to be complacent because he's expecting an assassination attempt from the outside, which if you were an emperor, wouldn't you be expecting assassination attempts from the outside?
It's just them trying to convince us that this issue is necessary when it really isn't.
It definitely, no offense to whoever wrote this issue, but it definitely feels like it was meant to be like a filler issue.
Oh, definitely.
But it does lead us to
either that or
fortunately, it does lead us to issue 14, which I got to read right after issue 13, so I didn't have to take a break from the A plot. And this is the issue that opens with another cool opening.
This is a good opening,
yes. This is not issue 13. This is issue 14, and it starts off with Warlock monologuing about his devotion to Crate and how Crate's deteriorating, and like Hosk Traylus, the Jedi who Cade captured, hasn't been able to help him.
Yeah, this is the first bit of information we actually get on Warlock so far in the run, and
really since then he's kind of
a very character.
Oh, continue.
I really enjoy his view on like immortality, indirectly, because he's more about his legacy, and the next Darth Warlock because he is the third.
Yes,
right?
Warlock the third.
Yes, so his father and his grandfather have tended to Crate for this time, and he's passing this on to his daughter, who I assume.
Actually, it was his mother who was the second, and his father was the first. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. His grandfather, and then his mother, and then him, and then his daughter. And it's a unique take on Sith immortality, because usually you have Sith like Darth Andedu, who are just so paranoid of dying that it consumes them. Where you have Darth Warlock, who, fittingly in the One Sith, has put aside this fear and has placed it as, he's kind of like Tywin Lannister, in that he has this emphasis on family, and that when he's gone, the family will remain.
Yeah, he says that he doesn't have any concern for himself because obviously he has a daughter, like we mentioned. But also that and again, this is showing one Sith devotion to Darth Krayt, that it's actually for Krayt that he's afraid of because he's dying, and there's nothing anyone can do.
Yeah, even Darth Malati, who's like specializes in Vong tech, can't cure him.
Yeah, which
She can the effects if she wanted to, but she can't cure him.
which again only I think works very well to place an emphasis on Cade being our protagonist, which also helps to advance the plot because Krayt wakes up from his big nap and says that Skywalker's coming, and we immediately cut to a really fun chase scene through Coruscant, which I really like because just the idea of I feel like in Star Wars, speeder chases and ship chases on Coruscant are as common as a car chase in New York, which I have no idea how much.
Oh, definitely. They as common as they are, they also talked about later on how we don't even know if this is Cade Skywalker's ship because they've had so many other reports of similar sightings. Which goes to tell you how many people there are on the galaxy.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't make sense at all. And it feels like there's, like you said, a routine police.
Yeah,
chase.
I feel on the Star Wars version of Cops, there's a high speed ship chase on Coruscant once a week. Yeah, well, I was going to say if not more because the entire planet is a city.
Yeah, it's I think it's actually confirmed to be 1 trillion people or approaching trillion.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. That's definitely a number I think I've heard thrown around too. But then we cut to Cade, of course, sitting in there because he ditched the TIE Predators. I think they're called. Yes, TIE Predators, which I really like the design of because again, they have kind of TIE fighter wings, but they're I don't know the term they're long ways rather than up and down, if that makes sense.
The horizontal.
Yeah, duh, that's the word.
And the flat facing front. I do like the design of them. They're not really sleek, but they're unique, and they're also pretty simple because some TIE fighter designs get really out there. I think Defender is about as crazy you can get without going too crazy. But I do like the Predators a lot.
Yeah, they work very well, and Cade gets to pull a Leia Organa and records a message for Jariah Sin and Delia Blue. And then goes off. He saves a Vong spawn, which is someone who's basically still infected by the Yuuzhan Vong terraforming.
And apparently the people have come to the Empire to get help, and the Empire has banished them to the slums of Coruscant. Yeah. So there's...
And then they...
hundreds and probably thousands upon thousands or tens of thousands of people infected with Vong spores.
Yeah, and again, this is a big strength of Legacy, and I don't know if the Republic comics are as good as it, because again, I haven't really read them like I should have, but I really like the alien diversity of this scene, because it looks like one of the Vong spawn might be a human, there's an Aqualish, and then the one that's actually getting beaten up is a Sullustan, and they're getting beaten up by I think a Devaronian, Trandoshan, and I think a Stavinen, and then a dude who looks like wannabe Dengar kind of in the background.
Whatever he is. I'm going to guess I'm borrowing.
Yeah, or just a really pale human.
He's blue. That too. But is this the Stavinen?
I think so, because he looks kind of like a Wolfman, but yeah, Cade gets to go 80s action movie star too.
Yeah, I'm just blasting.
Well, I love just... God, so the dialogue is so just awesome, because the one thug is talking about how it's a bad idea to walk around by yourself, and Cade says, well, I've got a friend, and shoots the dude in the chest with his blaster pistol.
It reminds me of KOTOR 2, with the bounty hunters all come after the Exiles' crew, and Beodor says, I'll choose to go after the guy who decided to threaten us instead of shoot us while he had the
Yeah, I
chance.
like that. And then,
So Cade just
yeah, he
blasts
shoots him like right in the chest. The dude obviously dies, and then he tells the Vong spawn to just run away, and then he goes to a cantina run by Jewel the Hutt, who is gross.
Zero before zero.
Yeah. Jewel the Hutt has a
With a Yark
has a
eye.
bikini on with a jewel eye, which assuming is why she's called Jewel, so very on the nose there.
Hmm. She's like a Yark, except disgusting.
Yeah. And yeah, Cade gets a
Like
an ale and a whiskey.
He's very suave. I like all of Cade's interactions, especially with Jewel here.
Yeah, like it's kind of like the way he sweet talks all these people. It's very kind of like Han Solo, like roguish charm kind of thing.
Cade's the type of person who just puts all of his stats into charisma and then just goes with it. And so far, he's been okay.
like it works really good, and he's always like, like hitting on all these female characters, which
Oh yeah.
which again, like it's fun to watch, like the interactions they have.
I enjoy most of the characters in here. The ones that you're supposed to enjoy, I do. Because they're all written very well.
Well, and the one thing I do like about Jewel, despite her disgusting Hutt appearance, is that she isn't like, and she's not an asshole Hutt, and she's actually like, she's nice to Cade.
Well, they exist. She is actually pretty nice too. She reminds me of Roz from Bounty Hunter. Jango Fett's Toydarian friend. Actually, that's the voice I give to her as well. But she seems actually somewhat trustworthy, which is unique for a Hutt.
And it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because for a lot of comic series, I do have a voice that I give to characters, but for some reason, besides like, obviously like Luke Skywalker, I don't really have voices for a lot of these characters. Which is
she's one of the few I do.
Which now that you mention it is kind of disappointing, but in my head I always just assumed that, just based on her appearance being a Hutt, that she sounds exactly like every Hutt we've ever heard, and it's basically just Jabba's voice.
I really don't want to use Zero's voice for her. But I really don't read much with putting voices into someone's, except for like quotes from actors or something, like a GIF of Christopher Lee. I'll read in his voice definitely.
Well, the thing is, when I'm reading, as a fun little side note into the madness that is my mind, whenever I'm reading my Spider-Man comics, everybody in those comics is the cast of the '90s Spider-Man cartoon.
That's worthy. I appreciate that.
But
I can accept
that.
But
Cade basically gets all his info that he wants and everything from Jewel. He basically just leaves the code. He leaves the codes to the Mynock with Jewel and then leaves, which we know where he's going.
And she does not, as far as we know.
No. But yeah, then we cut to the hangar for Skull Squad, which of course, being the Empire, specifically the Sith Empire, of course they would have to have something called Skull Squadron.
Of course, it's not itchy at all.
No. And then we get a little confrontation, I guess, where they were talking about, this is the squad that was chasing after Cade earlier, and basically the Moff comes in, and it's they confirm that Gunner is the leader of the squadron, is the daughter of the Moff Yeage, and yeah, that's pretty much it. He basically just yells at them for letting Cade escape, and that's pretty much it.
These reveals really don't do anything for me, because this is the first time we've seen a character. I don't know how much it's going to play into the future. It's not really supposed to be, oh, this is his daughter, but we'll see if it has any relevance in the future. It's hinting at it later on, but I'm not sure what the significance of
Yeah,
it's
and
supposed to be.
basically you get some exposition of, oh, him and my mother are having dinner, and I have to go with. And then we cut again back to the A plot, away from a parent reveal, where Cade arrives and like he can sneak in, which I really like because it's the Jedi Temple, and it's mentioned like a lot of times that like this like he lived here, so of course he knows the secret way to get in.
And another thing, a lot of the characters speak in like Star Wars alien languages. I think this is Huttese,
Yes.
Techuta or whatever. But this makes up a lot of dialogue, especially with Cade, Jewel.
Oh yeah,
Dryden.
I really like that. Like, well, part of it is they can throw in like the Star Wars curses and keep it PG. But I like it because there are a lot of people who like obviously in the real world like if they know stuff from another language like they'll just pepper it in, and it's cool that in Star Wars these people are also doing that.
It makes it feel more lived in and real. But he infiltrates the Sith temple, which looks like a giant volcano. And we're told that we were told this later on, but I'm going to mention it again, that they built the temple over the Jedi temple.
Yeah, well, of course the Sith would have to do that because they're the bad guys.
Yeah, so they desecrate the temple entirely.
Yeah, they desecrate the temple of their ancient and oldest enemy and build their own on top of it.
So Cade infiltrates the temple because apparently like ventilation hasn't been changed all that much.
Well, I always imagined that it was like a back door or something on like one of the lower levels of Coruscant that he could get in. And like it was probably meant to be like a secret thing that the Jedi knew about, but no one else.
Either that or he's just swimming through Jedi plumbing.
Yeah, that could be too.
Either way,
he finds Hosk, and Hosk basically just pours his heart out to him.
I like Hosk.
Yeah, he's very sympathetic, especially in this part because he's obviously covered in like cuts and bruises, and he's obviously had the tar beaten out of him.
Oh yeah, he's really pathetic and pitiful.
Yeah, and Cade basically tells him, shut up, it's my fault that you were here in the first place, so I'm trying to save you.
Okay, I'm looking now. Is this Dianoga just really close to the camera, or like whatever you would call it with a comic book, or is it just massive?
I like to believe that whenever I looked at this, I always thought that it was just a big Dianoga that had been there for a very, very long time. Because I'm not familiar with like the Dianoga, and I don't know how big they get, but like I imagine I always imagine that they're kind of Sarlacc-esque, where they just continually get bigger.
Yeah, it's like this situation with the Sarlacc, where you get the one on Tatooine, and it's really small, and then you go to Felucia and Force Unleashed, and it's massive.
Yeah, so I like the idea that there are giant Dianoga just floating around in sewer systems.
It sounds terrifying, but they're getting out, and Trayla's talking about how Cade is using his anger too much, and too hot, and Darth Talon pops out of nowhere here.
Yeah, Darth Talon again showing how sneaky she is. But yeah, they basically they take Cade alive because Nihil shows up and force chokes him, which it works good for Nihil because he talks himself up about how he just defeated Cade like he defeated his father, but in reality he just blindsided both of them to beat them.
Cade is so inconsistent with his fights. I don't understand. Like, he can go toe-to-toe with someone for so long, but he also just gets ragdolled by Nile.
Well, I think here
And,
it's because he was obviously fighting Talon, and then Nile literally just like walks in from a different part after he was force choking him from behind.
There's better examples later. I'll talk about
Yeah,
it. Then.
yeah, that,
But actually, we confirmed that the Dianoga is actually huge.
yeah, that is true.
Because here it is.
And apparently, it just doesn't care about
Alright, it's
anyone
correct.
next to them because it looks like it's just chilling out.
Clearly, they're using Beast Mastery to divert.
Of course. Yeah, they kind of basically all Nile does is just all he does is shit talk Cade, and then they talk about how they're going to go tell Crate that they found Cade, and it cuts over back to Ossus.
It's like the rivalry they have again, because he's like, I'm going to go tell Crate that I captured Cade. You can go carry his body or
Yeah,
some shit.
yeah, I really do like the dynamic between the two of them, because it's like they're coworkers who really, really don't like each other.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna get this rivalry in the Sith. But in the one Sith is kind of unique because they can't overtly kill each other, so there's just like this really heated tension between
it's
them.
basically
really
it's basically which one of them gets to be teacher's pet.
Yeah, it's like a sibling rivalry.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's also very cool because, especially with Talon and Nile, because obviously visually they're very, very different, because Nile is like starkly pale, whereas Talon is red with Sith tattoos.
Oh yeah, they're night and day. Nile is like this Grim Reaper type, and then Talon's like this seductress. It's kind of like playing to each of their genders, like extremes. It's like this is certain duality between them, but moving on to Ossus, we have something that like Avatar, where everything's glowing in these rocks that the Jedi are meditating in.
Yeah,
Felucia.
I really like it. The visual is very, very cool. They're all sitting there, and Wolf opens his eyes because he has his little vision of Cade facing away, and then he turns around, and Cade's eyes are Sith red, and it's talking about how...
Which happens really often.
Oh yeah, it literally happened in the fight when he was fighting when he was fighting Talon.
It's like a switch. He keeps turning off.
Well, actually, now that you mention it, I do really like how subtly it is, and Switch is the perfect way, because in one panel he'll have like his normal green eyes, and his eyes are always drawn like very like not like neon like green, but they're always very eye-catchingly green. But then they'll go from literally like one panel, they'll be green, and then the next panel, like it usually zooms in on his face, but they're red. But then in the next,
it makes sense.
But then in the next panel they'll be back to green, because again, switch on and off, which I really like, especially with Cade. It works very well.
Anakin does the same thing, because you see in like episode 3 where he turns to face the camera and he has his hood up and he's about to go kill Wat Tambor. His eyes are red, and then the next time he talks to Padme, his eyes are back blue.
Yeah, it's very good, and I like that they kind of continue that, your eyes aren't always Sith red, but that's how the issue ends, and this is kind of where we get back into cool covers. Issue 14 had a kind of a cool cover with them in the cantina, and it's back to non-scary CG.
Oh God!
And
thank you.
I really like this cover for issue 15, where it's Cade in the he's cuffed, kneeling, and doesn't look too happy.
Oh, I agree. I think this is the first time where I actually have a positive note on the cover, especially. So he's captured in the Sith Temple, and we open up with Calix talking to Malady, who's telling her to call off search for Cade Skywalker. Reason that she won't go into detail with. And Calix isn't too happy with this.
No, and then we get, that's basically like that whole conversation there, and then Calix talks with some of the other Moffs, one of whom is a Chiss, which I really like.
And He feels different from Thrawn too, which is nice. It's good to see that he's not just a Thrawn clone. He's also pretty inconsequential.
Yeah, for now.
Uh, I like species diversity. I'm tired of looking at these ugly
Yeah,
ass.
humans are just disgusting. I have to see them every day.
But especially these, none of them are drawn to be lookers.
No, literally, like it's kind of like they kind of make it very obvious who is like the bad guys and who are the good guys, because the good guys are drawn to be much more attractive than the bad guys.
Oh yeah, I think
Like,
Morgan Cord actually calls one of the moths ugly, or generalizes as being
oh
ugly
well, I
later on.
mean, like Moff Yage here literally has like the crimson chin,
He does.
and then Calixte has like really hollow looking cheeks, and it's very off putting to me. It looks kind of like
She looks like she's been hit with the machine from Monsters Inc. that like sucks your face.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, then we get to have the awkward dinner between them, and they pretty much just talk more about how basically just how Gunnar is their daughter and how Gunnar doesn't like her mom.
Now they have a very dysfunctional family, which I'm sure is commonplace in the Empire. But I don't know how these two made Gunnar, because she's actually drawn somewhat attractively,
Well,
and not.
I think it's probably revealed later on, and we'll get to it.
All right, never mind.
Yeah, no, yeah, we'll get to that, but then we get to cut back.
This is a
Yeah,
subtle hint.
yeah, of course, yeah. But yeah, then we get to cut back again, and this I'm gonna probably end up saying this a lot, but we cut back to A plot with Cade.
This is true. I The focus on Calixte is weird, but
Well, we'll probably
probably
figure out why.
yes. Oh God, is she Kate's sister or something? They're both blonde.
But no, we get to cut to Maladi, who's torturing Cade with like drug injections, but he basically gets to talk about how he's like shit talking her, he's like chirping her, and he's like, "This is some bad product. You need some better stuff."
Well, it's literally the formula for death sticks, the Ixtal plant.
Yeah, and then
So this is nothing he hasn't
yeah,
done
and then
before.
Maladi says, "I supply the death sticks merchants."
I do like their comebacks, but their interactions with one another.
Yeah, but then of course Maladi, being a Sith and being able to sense the Force, basically pretty much just tells Cade to drop it because he's using the Force, and she specifically notes like a Sith bending it to his will.
Yeah, which is a common occurrence in this. Wolf Sazen likes mentioning it a lot.
Yeah, and then we get to have the cool off-panel walk-in where Krayt says that that then Cade realizes the limitations of the Jedi teachings, and then we get weird, distorted, trippy Krayt, which is pretty freaking terrifying.
Yeah, I really like how all the hallucinations are drawn. It gives an outlet for like a lot of creativity, but everything else is pretty normal.
Yeah, and then I shouldn't, but I just find it kind of funny that after we see trippy Krayt, Cade's basically just screaming.
Krayt's just that scary.
Well, that's the thing, is I can't decide in like my head if he's doing it out of what the hell am I looking at? This is terrifying, or if he's angry because Krayt's he's the Lord of the Sith, and the Sith killed his dad and all his Jedi friends.
I'm gonna go with the former because that's just hilarious to me.
Yeah, because like trippy, like distorted, rainbow-colored Krayt walks in. That would be my reaction if I was tied up on a torture rack.
I would too. So Krayt somewhat introduces himself but Cade hardly knows who he is.
Yeah.
Because he's pretty distinguishable.
Yeah, he's the crab.
Basically,
Yeah, but
the crab of the Sith, not the
I
dragon.
really love like the dialogues that we get to have between Crate and Cade. I think they work really, really well off of each other.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's a very unique Sith to go off of. But he summons Darth Talon after after he has a little banter with Cade about resisting torture.
Well,
and
there's
stuff.
also that,
And,
and Cade tries to lie to him about how he can't use his healing power on anyone except for himself.
Oh, that's true. This too. And so he brings out Sev and Delilah, and basically, like a Sith, coaxes anger out of Cade, like Palpatine, and threatens their lives. Because some point along the way, they've been given the use of Bong spores, and malady just saps the shit out of them, and they start growing out of control.
Yeah, which is it's really gross looking, which obviously is supposed to be the point, and it's probably like hella painful.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
they don't look like they're very pleased in these.
No, and then Cade gets to do his PG Star Wars swearing and gets to say Ichuta and calls him a Karking Slimo, which is probably a lot of Star Wars F words.
Oh yeah, Karking Slimo was his.
It sounds angry and aggressive.
The only way I can make it feel intimidating though is replacing it with like the real world.
That is true, because it does to us obviously it sounds very silly because we speak English.
But he's just speaking Spanish.
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah. So
he heals.
Yeah, he heals him by obviously. Yeah, he heals him out of his anger, and we get some more panels.
Crate's goading him again.
What was that?
Basically, his entire relationship with Crate from this point on is Crate trying to goad him to use the dark side of his baser emotions.
Yeah, and then we get the a really solid line out of Cade where he's trying to bargain for his friend's life, and he just says, "I'm supposed to trust a Sith," which is probably the smartest thing he's ever said.
Yeah, but it's also he has no other choice too at the same time.
Yeah, that is true, and he basically says that he's going to stay on and become a Sith as long as his friends get to leave.
Which is where we start drawing parallels between him and Quillen Vos, which is actually mentioned later on.
Yes, I actually do have that in my notes for one of the next issues.
Yeah, he's going to be pretending to be a Sith, but it's not really doing him that well because we see him with Sith eyes in the next panel.
Of course, but I do like his him and Dry's little back and forth about how Sin basically tells him, you can't do that. I'm not going to owe you anything, and Cade says you can't owe the dead because he's obviously planning on being dead, which is a pretty at this point typical Cade kind of thing.
Metaphorically or even physically dead. Kind of like in the same way Obi-Wan says that Vader killed Anakin, so on and so forth. At a certain point of view.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But then we get to cut back to Calix's plot, where her and I think it's Veed, Moff Veed, are going to use Morgan Cord to find Cade and bring him back to them to basically use against the Sith.
Oh, she's unbuttoning a shirt.
Yeah, it's very. We get to go from like PG Star Wars to like PG-13. It gets so risque. Uh-huh. They're drinking. They're like drinking wine, and then it cuts to black.
If this wasn't Star Wars, we can get the obligatory one use of the word "fuck," but unfortunately, we get Karking Slimo instead.
Much better.
I have to.
Yeah, agree. And then. Yeah, then we cut back to the Sith Temple, where we get basically we get to have kind of cocky Warlock where he basically puts Nile in his place because Cade and Talon are summoned to like go meet with Crate, and obviously Warlock himself will be there. But Malady and Nile basically have to stand outside and wait.
Yeah, it doesn't really come off as cockiness to me. It's just more like of him being strictly professional. But I do like what's said here about Malady points out that Nile wasn't born Sith, and they're both stuck out here because they have their own individual passions. Like we established that Nile was a warrior previously before joining the Sith ranks, so he's pretty individualistic in design already because he's all white and most Sith are red and tattooed up, in the one Sith at least, and he has these passions that weren't brainwashed out of him like these other Sith who have grown up believing that their only purpose is to serve Crate. And Malady has this intense curiosity with like mysteries and secrets of the Force and science, and
Yeah,
they're kind of extending into the old ways of the Sith rather than this absolute passion for Crate
yeah.
himself.
I also like Malady's line about how like yeah, Nile was always intended to be like a military leader, but he was only a hand because like his predecessor died and Talon wasn't ready yet.
That's probably true, and it gives more credence to his hate of Talon and their dynamic like rivalry they have got going. Because Nile has like this undying need to prove himself. Because he probably feels really inadequate, and he has a confidence issue.
Yeah, but then
But I really like
it's a very interesting dynamic between the two of them because they're kind of the outliers in the one Sith.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're definitely the most individual of the one Sith outside of like Crate himself.
And then we do get to cut into the dinner scene, which is really pleasant with Cade getting to, kind of chirp at Crate about how, you're basically doing good cop, bad cop.
Yeah. Like he's Han Solo the Jedi, and he feels different from Katarn. You could describe as being the same way. It's kind of like the same archetype, but taken in a different direction.
Yeah, the way I always thought it, and it's probably just me, but like, probably just with a lot of the stuff I did when I was younger, like playing hockey and stuff, like a lot of the stuff Cade says reminds me of like hockey chirps that like I heard playing hockey, and like I've heard like going to like hockey games. Like he just does like a lot of shit talking, and it's not in like a obviously with like his friends it's in like a playful fun way, but like when it's not with his friends it's definitely a aggressive like I'm being a jerk to you and I'm gonna be cocking off the entire time.
Yeah, he's just a smart ass.
Yeah, it's awesome. But then we get the really cool.
He chows.
Oh yeah, we get the awesome visual of Cade eating a sandwich-looking thing and just scarfing down bugs.
I eat bugs. It's like something out of Lion King with Timon and Pumbaa, but he's just scarfing down shit.
Yeah, but the one thing I do like, and it took me a couple rereads of this comic because I've read it several times, but like Cade is eating the bugs and there's no wincing on his face, which confirms that just bugs are just like a delicacy in Star Wars. Or not a delicacy, but like they're a common occurrence, which makes sense because in a giant galaxy there have to be like bugs that taste like a pork chop.
Oh yeah, like Earth alone has so many different like types of food and like different cultures. Could you imagine a galaxy of different palates?
Oh yeah, well, it kind of like whenever I see those bugs, it also calls back '03 Clone Wars where Anakin is eating bugs and Obi-Wan is just disgusted.
You told me you said to eat off the living force, or to feed off the living force. That's not what I meant.
Yeah, Cade's just following his ancestor. They're both bug eaters.
Skywalkers love bugs.
Yeah, then we get
But then we get the reveal of Cole Skywalker's lightsaber, who I assume they confiscated this from Cade when they captured him. Which, come to think of it, is the wrong lightsaber color. Shouldn't it be blue?
actually when Ni-Rin gives it to Cade, she makes note that the original blue crystal was burnt out, and
This
she
is
uses a crystal that she herself shaped because she's a Yuuzhan Vong shaper, so that's why it's green.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I really like because
I read that.
green lightsabers are my aesthetic.
Oh yeah, it's also a synthetic crystal then, isn't it? Or would it be with using Vong tech? Can they engineer?
Yes,
crystals?
because in the NJO series, a couple, at least, I can't remember. I think it's just Anakin Solo gets a Yuuzhan Vong lambent crystal. They're called.
Huh.
But yeah,
That's pretty.
no,
neat.
it's very cool.
Well,
it obviously green is obviously going to tie him back to Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. And I like Cade with the green lightsaber anyway. It matches
Yeah, Cade obviously he obviously didn't say anything because he's like, oh shit, this matches my eyes. Oh, this is perfect.
But so the lightsaber's revealed, and we actually get something interesting from Crate is that he actually really respects Cole Skywalker. And I don't know how much this has to do with what we know in this issue later.
Well, a page later.
That he was a former Jedi.
Yeah, well, there's no tiptoeing around it. Anybody who knows about like this period of Star Wars knows. But you get the little like apparently people, and again, I wasn't reading the comics at the time they came out, but apparently a lot of people were already theorizing that Ashrad Het was Darth Krayt.
Yeah, I heard Grey Jedi 91 talk about this, where Dark Horse confirmed that a character would be returning from the previous comic books. And everybody was like, who's this Darth Krayt guy? Who has the same chin tattoos as Ashrad?
Yeah, pretty much. So it worked out really cool for me reading the comics for the first time because I'm not really that familiar with Ashrad Het. So it was a really cool reveal, but I also like the little bit of foreshadowing you get one page before where he's talking about how, you know, this ritual might not be to Cade's understanding, but it's something his people taught him, and he has to follow his code.
Yeah, and he's what we now is talking about the Tusken Raiders.
Yes, and another little thing that I like, you know, Cade kind of dumbly, because I'm assuming he would know about history, says that, you know, well, you used to be a Jedi, and Krayt says, you know, don't look so amazed. The Sith were always born and reborn within the ranks of the Jedi, and like that's a really good line because it's very, very true.
Oh yeah, there are very few Sith who weren't Jedi to begin with. A lot of the rules to Sith weren't born Jedi, or all of them rather, probably. Aside from Dooku
and Anakin.
Yes. But Cognis, Bane, Xana, Plagueis, Tenebris, all of them were Sith from the start. And it's very true that basically, it's very true. I don't know where else to go.
Basically, into the next page, which is it's such a cool like visual, like because you get Krayt without his helmet on, which when you look at his armor, it looks like, you know, the helmet is just part of it. But no, he could just take it off, which is kind of a lot less intimidating. But no, you get to see that I just love the little line of dialogue he has. I grew in understanding and power, and made myself into Darth Krayt, but I was born Ashrad Het.
Yeah, it's very. This whole panel is not well. Hell, it's an entire page
Yeah.
actually. The reveal is very cool. I unfortunately knew this going in, but it's nice having the perspective of what would essentially be a reread, because you get hints of his lineage before this time, especially in the creation of the One Sith we talked about last time, and how it kind of reflects the Jedi.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, I like the context of this, that this isn't like a huge, grand, like, I am your father, like, big dramatic thing. Like, in the tone of voice that I read this, like, Krayt isn't being like super menacing. Like, he's just using like his regular indoor voice. Like, he's not trying to be intimidating. He's not, or any of that. He's just saying it just like as a matter of fact. Like, yeah, I'm Darth Krayt now, but I was Ashrad Het. Like, it's
Yeah, what you're describing
yeah.
reminds me of how it should have ended for The Last Jedi, where Snoke is revealed to be Darth Plagueis, and Rey's like, I have no idea who you are, but now, and I don't see how this was relevant to the plot whatsoever, but I understand now, Darth Plagueis. And this does come off as really natural.
Yeah.
And
But
so does the following dialogue about his past.
yes, which is the next issue, which issue 16, again, really cool cover with Obi-Wan and the twin sons.
Oh god, okay, I actually really like this issue.
Yeah, this is honestly like one of the highlights of the entire series. But it does open with a B plot of Morgan Cord showing up to Moff Veed's bedroom as he's assumingly in like his like skivvies because he's asleep.
Imagine getting this comic book in the mail or buying it from the store and then opening it after you see Obi-Wan Kenobi surrounded by twin sons on the front cover, and it's Morgan Cord in bed with this naked man with a blaster to his head.
Yeah, and it's literally one page, and oh yeah, this is where she calls ugly Imperial. He calls him ugly. Yeah. Ugly Imperials aren't my type. I like that. Despite the poor reveal of Morgan being Cade's mother, I do really like her as a character. Like, you can definitely see that, like, a little bit of her personality, like, it seems like that's where Cade inherited, like, his cockiness and kind of smartassness from.
Oh, definitely. It didn't
come no, it didn't come from Jedi Grandmaster.
But I do like her personality, and she's definitely his mother, and he's definitely her son.
No, well, I mean, the hairstyles are basically the same. Like, they have the same haircut. But I, as much as like that reveal being kind of bad, I really like her character and how she's an Imperial agent, but she's not afraid to like chirp her like overlords.
Oh yeah, definitely, and she's working for the Empire, but she's not evil either.
Yeah,
and how she's kind of, I don't even think she's really evil at all. She's kind of good, actually, but she kind of walks a fine line. She'll do some dirty shit, but
yeah. Then we cut over to Blue and Dryson in the cantina, and they have Cade's holo message, and they're confronted by the two people that Cade was, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember their names.
I don't remember the Wookiee's name because he's a Wookiee. We'll call him the Wookiee and the Devaronian.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I like them. Like, they're a fun pair to like have as side. Like, they're very effective side characters.
Yeah, it's a more edgy Zalbaran mission.
Yeah, pretty much. I like how, despite Jiraiya talking a big talk that, oh, I don't care about Cade, blah blah blah. Like, I like how there's a panel of him just drowning his sorrow in a bottle of booze. Like,
do I have a note about?
Like, again, like, there's some very subtle stuff in here about like.
Oh yeah, he even says, that he has nightmares, and killing him is the only way to get rid of them. And that he looks like really upset in this panel where Delilah is pointing the gun at him.
Oh yeah, he's literally just leaning on his arm, and he's got his bottle of whiskey or his glass of whiskey in the other hand, and then we basically just I think it's a cut to a conversation that Morgan's having with the gang, and I love when you turn the page and they're all pointing their blasters at her. Like that's such like it's such a good panel. Like this group of characters works very well off of each other again. Even when Cade's not there, like you're obviously meant to care about Delia Blue and Jiraiya Sin, and it works very well because like whereas when Calixte and her dysfunctional family are on the page, it's kind of like, oh, whatever, this is basically just advancing plot. But when Cade's friends and his mother and the Mission and Zalbar analogs are there, like it's still fun to read. Like it's advancing the plot in a more fun way.
In a way, Morgan is basically Cade, so they all.
Yeah, that's true.
They both.
Yeah, so I guess the way Legacy is going to work, as long as there's a blonde on screen, like it's probably going to be fun to read. Blondes have more fun.
Probably. But I do like what you mentioned. It's using the medium very well, because this ends the page where she just pops up in the conversation after they're all arguing and pointing their blasters at one another, and then in the very next panel, they're all pointing them at her.
Yeah, like that would be like the perfect like 90s sitcom like cutaway. So tell me you have a plan, and then the camera zooms out and everybody's pointing a blaster at her. And then we get the classic, I was never here, and she's sliding over a stack of credit chips, which is always fun in any medium.
Oh my god, I just realized the hut's putting
Yep, it's, again, Jewel's a nice hut, but she's a hut, so she's disgusting.
I just noticed this. God, it's gross.
Yeah, and she then kind of exposits to Delia and Jiraiya Sin that she's Cade's mom. Kind of obviously
she's just
cluing them in on to what we know.
Yeah, she's just so curt about it always. It just comes with like no consequence. Oh yeah, I'm Cade's mom. Oh well, whatever. They have made no attempt to be like Darth Vader at all.
No, not at all. Which is nice because I like the reaction that they have where Jiraiya, he's just like, oh yeah, that's a fake.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Wookiee, for some reason, had traded with the Jedi, and he remembers that they were there, and so it's not Morgan who convinces them; it's the Wookiee.
And this hologram, and holy shit! Now that you mentioned it earlier, Calixte has this hologram too. What's going on?
What could be going on at all? Definitely not another weird reveal, but. Yeah, she basically tells them to, fly their ship to somewhere, and they're going to wait, but they're going to get some intel first. So we get to cut back to Cade. I won't say the A plot because that portion was actually part of the A plot, which is fun. But we do get to cut back to the Sith Temple, where basically Crate tells Cade like half of his life story.
Yeah. Oh my god, these banthas look terrible.
Yeah, but I do love I love Crate's thing when he's sitting there and he has his helmet on like a little stand, which is cool because it makes it seem like in private it's kind of Vader-esque, where obviously he's not going to let the galaxy see him without his helmet because looking at him, like, from the neck up, like, he doesn't look like a very intimidating dude. He just looks like an old man with gray hair and tattoos.
It's like Kylo Ren, except I don't want to say anything more. It would be mean to Adam Driver.
Yeah.
It's more effective than Kylo Ren.
Yeah, but I love how he's just pretty much shit talking like the Republic and the Jedi Order. And Cade
yeah.
mentions how Order 66 went down and the Jedi's own troops slagged him, and then Crate like has a really like good retort that's kind of a burn on Cole. How he says, "Your masters neglected your education. Don't you know the names of Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi? I do, especially Kenobi," which for some reason I always read in the terrible Darth Maul Clone Wars whenever he like reads
Yep.
Kenobi.
Kenobi!
That's basically how I like read it in my head, even though like his face and posture again it's very effective though, because again Crate isn't like yelling at Cade, he's not shouting, he's not grandstanding or anything. He's just having a conversation and he's telling this story. Like, it's very effective.
Crate yells in very rare instances, and when he does, it's very
It's really cool, and he's always, whenever he yells, it's drawn as if he's not yelling, he's like screaming like very, very loudly.
Oh yeah, it works though, because it doesn't like compromise his intimidation, because he's a foot taller than everybody else. Especially help. And I just like the way he's drawn when he's yelling.
Yeah, and then we do get, basically a flashback about it. It basically just talks about how he survived Order 66, returned to Tatooine, rode some scary looking banthas. And one day there was a moisture farm. Whose moisture farm could this be? That Obi-Wan Kenobi's defending it.
The person on the cover.
But just the reveal of Obi-Wan is awesome, because you get the one little panel of where it's just the shot of his lightsaber on the belt, and obviously anyone who knows anything about Star Wars, it's like nobody has that lightsaber. That's Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah, definitely. I love Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's one of my favorite Jedi, and this moment is very well known. If you haven't read Legacy, you've likely seen this at least. But it's with reason, because this is a very powerful. It's I don't know if these two have met in the Old Republic comic books up until this point.
I don't know. Again, all I really know from them about Oshrod's interactions is he's definitely met Anakin, but just the dialogue again is very effective, because the way they speak to each other, it's very formal. Like, you definitely assume that they've met each other. They're both Jedi Masters. They probably like had lunch or something together.
Or at least I know who they are, because the Jedi aren't too many in number.
But the dialogue's awesome. Like, they're definitely talking to each other as equals. Like, even though Oshrod by this point is like a Tusken warlord, like, he's like, oh, this is, a fellow Jedi Master. They address each other as Master Het and Master Kenobi.
Oh yeah, even with him going off the rails. But his method of like changing the Tuskens is a lot different from Sharad Het's. And I had to go back. Actually, last night I had to go back and reread a good bit of Outlander to understand the difference, because it felt really similar at first, but essentially, Asherad is going on these like rampages and just slaughtering anybody that gets in his way, whereas Sharad Het is the active warlord of the Tuskens, so he doesn't have absolute authority on them. But when they do have casualties, like farmers in their raids, Sharad Het is like very mournful about it, and he regrets it deeply. And really, the only people he wants to go after are the ones shooting at them, or the ones getting too close. It's very calculated, whereas Asherad is more like just running a massacre.
Yeah, and then we get some very. I like how Obi-Wan. Obviously, we the reader know that he's protecting this moisture farm because that's where like baby Luke is. But the way he phrases it, obviously, he's not going to let anyone know why he's defending this specific one, when there have obviously been other murders and stuff that Obi-Wan could have stopped. But he's defending this,
Yeah,
and
it's
Ashrad does have some really good points about how they were both basically warlords for the Republic when, they were told to be.
yeah. The first time I read this, I got really pissed at Obi-Wan because it seemed like he was just brushing off what they did. Because the Clone Wars were a necessary war that the Jedi needed to be involved in, but unfortunately, Palpatine held the hand of both sides. Uh, so I don't think the problem is so much Asherad being a warlord, but him just like massacring farmers and just pillaging all of Tatooine until settlers leave, which obviously goes against Obi-Wan's MMO because he's trying to protect
Yeah,
Luke.
but Obi-Wan does have a very good point about how, the past mistakes like don't justify like what's going on right now. Like,
Especially when Red is becoming what he wants to get rid of, which is what Obi-Wan says
yeah,
as well.
pretty much. And then like Asherad obviously gives out his point, and then we get the cool shot of them both igniting their lightsabers. And little side note, as an aesthetic thing, Asherad's like leather wrapped lightsaber just it looks cool.
Way back in the day, before I even this is the first time I've read Legacy all the way through, but I've known Asherad Head and Darth Greater for a very long time, and Tuskens are something I've been attracted to design wise for a very long time. And so when I saw a Tusken Jedi, I of course lost my shit, and Asherad had become my favorite Jedi without me even reading a single comic book from him. But his lightsaber is actually one of the first ones I've worn. And this was back when Vader's Vault still accepted requests rather than having like their own store for you to order. So you would like send in a schematic, but Asherad's head was actually the first lightsaber I actually wanted because of the leather.
Yeah, it's really cool. Not that it's just like a leather wrapped, but he has like the rocks or the pieces of bones or whatever it looks like with the little on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's very striking, and it's one of those lightsabers again. If you're into that kind of stuff for Star Wars, like not everyone is, but like if you saw that, you'd be like, oh yeah, that you could see it and know who it belongs to. Like similar to like Obi-Wan or Anakin or Luke, like you see their lightsaber and you're like, oh, that's theirs. Like you would see that one and you'd be like, oh,
Oh, yeah,
that's his.
definitely. It's very distinctly recognizable, which is kind of rare for Dark Horse comic books because I love the artist here, but really the only lightsabers you can recognize are the ones from the main cast, Asherad Het and Quinlan Voss.
Yeah, that is true because
And I guess
Ashrad's other lightsaber, which is his father's, is very, 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 very nondescript.
yeah, it's very
Yeah.
strange.
But I like
And,
both of them because they're green, and green is my favorite lightsaber color.
side note, Sharad Het's lightsaber was actually retconned as green in the Clone Wars comic books because after Attack of the Clones came out, Jedi couldn't have red lightsabers, and his lightsaber was originally red. And I like it on Asherad being green, but being on Sharad Het, the green just it doesn't work because he has like red lenses for eyes and then a blue tunic. I wish it was blue, but it works here.
Yeah, so
But then we get their fight.
it's I think it's like the longest like single fight that we have. Like it, in like real time, you could imagine this fight going for like 5-6 minutes as opposed to the other fights, which seems like they would be a few moments. But there's like a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of it shows their different fighting styles. Like Obi-Wan obviously being a Sarisu Masters, like on the defensive, and uh, Asherad he's an Eye Man specialist, so he's throwing in kicks, and he punches Obi-Wan or hits him with the pommel of his lightsaber at one point. He throws his lightsaber. Like again, it's like a very cool thing to people who are like in the know for this kind of stuff, that you can see that like the two of them fight very differently, and Obi-Wan doesn't even throw a strike until he kicks Asherad in the chest.
Oh yeah, you can. I like it when stories in the Star Wars universe actually match with what force they would use. so it's not like a Qui-Gon Jinn situation where he's given a Taru and you're like, this really looks like Jimso, but I guess it's a Taru. And but this fits without having to have some weird explanation.
Yeah, like they very easily could have put one of those like I don't know what they're called in comic terms, like the exposition panels that where basically the omniscient narrator could have been like, oh, these two Jedi are fighting, and Ashrad's a 9-man master, and that's why he kicked him, and Obi-Wan's a Sariso master, so he's blocking and redirecting everything. But no, there's no text like for a lot of this. Like obviously when Obi-Wan gets kicked and punched, like he makes like the noises, and same thing with Ashrad, but like there's no dialogue until the fight's over. And even then, like you get a couple more.
It's like 4 pages long.
What was that?
This fight's like 4 or 5 pages long.
Yeah, like I said, it's like you could imagine this fight being like 5-6 minutes.
But it quickly ends when either Obi-Wan cuts his arm off, force pushes his arm off, and just rips it from the elbow down.
What I always imagined happened is basically Obi-Wan cuts his arm off and then force pushes him away.
That's what it looks like, but I could see either one, but it's also smoking in the next panel.
Yeah, so it I always just assumed it's what I said, but like, and I don't like the idea of Obi-Wan using the Force to blow somebody's arm off.
I don't know, it's kind of badass. I'd like some Force feats, because usually he's the one getting ragdolled by Force.
Yeah, so it is cool that he gets to use a Force push, and then he pulls his Ashrad's other lightsaber away, which I really like that panel just a lot, where one of his arms is going one way with the lightsaber, and the other one's getting thrown in the opposite direction. It's very cool looking, and then he pulls off his Tusken face mask, and basically his Tuskens, bro, I'm about to head out.
Yeah, I think actually this was intentional, because I assume this is after. Yeah, this is definitely after the Kenobi novel, where he fights Ayark and the other Tuskens. So he knows about how Tusken culture works, at least by memory. So he should know about the whole whosoever shall have 2 arms can hold a gator fee.
Well, and also, I don't think he cut off his arm because of that. I think he cut off his arm because he's in a fight. But then Ashrad does, kind of exposit that to him. He basically says, you just disgraced me in front of my people, and I can't use a gator fee anymore.
Yeah, it's debatable whether or not Obi-Wan does, but I like to think he does.
Yeah,
So he basically tells him to get his shit together.
Yeah, I really like that, but it kind of draws a parallel to Vader, because Obi-Wan could have easily walked down there and just, poked Anakin in the heart with his lightsaber and no Vader. Here, he could have, killed Ashrad and no Darth Krayt, so Obi-Wan's responsible for another Sith Lord, kind of.
Congratulations, Obi-Wan, you created 2 genocides.
Well, to be fair, he didn't kill Anakin after the genocide, until after the first genocide.
He killed Bolter Swan.
Yeah, that is true. But it's another cool parallel, and I love Obi-Wan's line of, the Tuskens were once your people, but so were the Jedi. You've forgotten our ways, and perhaps with meditation you will remember them and yourself. And obviously, Ashrad does the exact opposite.
Because it makes raining Dark Lord.
Yeah. And then we obviously cut to the present, and Krayt tells Cade that, later he found out that that moisture farm had Luke on it. And that in his words, that the righteous Obi-Wan Kenobi failed to share with me. And then Cade again has a awesome just chirp, and so that puts the Skywalkers 2 up on you?
You're
Yeah,
spiding Murglac.
it's just awesome.
Oh,
Cade is
yeah.
he's such a fun character to read.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed just about every panel.
And then Talon, she gets mad because Cade's shit talking her master, and then Cade yeets her into a wall and basically threatens to use Dark Transfer to kill her.
This is what I'm talking about, because he could just kill her instantly right here.
Yeah, but
Some other times he's struggling against her.
well, here I think she wasn't. For a lot of this, I think it's context. Like, she wasn't expecting Cade to throw her into a wall.
I don't know,
But
it comes off as very strange to me.
for me, it's always been like
he threatens
the
to kill
specific
her.
context of it. Like when they're in an actual like pitched fight and Cade hasn't used a lightsaber in 7 years, he's gonna struggle. But here he kind of got the upper hand on her because she just force pushed him. She wasn't expecting to get retaliated against because Darth Crate's standing 5 feet away from Cade.
This is true.
But I really like Cade talking about how he can use Shatterpoint, and he could pour the Force into the place where she's hurt and heal her, or he could explode that point.
Yep. He could pull a Barasafi or a Mace Windu and just shatter her.
Yeah, pretty much, which is obviously something that Cade hasn't done at this point. He's only used it to heal, but this is the first time you see him using it to hurt.
Yeah, she starts crying.
Yeah, and bleeding from the mouth and the nose, and it seems very unpleasant.
Oh, yeah.
And then Crate basically gives him the whole Sith spiel about how you need to focus your power, and you're angry, use your anger.
Cuts off his braces and tells him to Darth Talon, so he can be trained by him.
So he does it, and he basically says, teach me the ways of the Sith Master.
And Craig goes on again about the Jedi really isn't your thing, and you should be using your base emotions because that's what you're doing anyway. So you're more Sith philosophy naturally, so you may as well go with that. And we basically get Cade starting his whole Quinlan Voss. I walk in the shadows, but I'm not really Sith type thing.
I think it's more of a Luke Skywalker Dark Empire type thing.
Don't reference that in my presence.
I'm gonna reference that in your presence because that comparison, despite Crate eventually mentioning Quinlan Voss, the Skywalkers have already done this before. Literally, this is like
every Skywalker touches the dark side.
Well, no, Ben Skywalker does, but yeah, it looks like Cole Skywalker finally gets to be the Jedi Skywalker. And then he dies, yeah. Because Ben Skywalker, even Luke's son, has in the Legacy of the Force series has a couple spats with the dark side,
which is good. I like it. It humanizes people.
Yeah, it's very cool that even Luke Skywalker's descendant isn't perfect, which is a very cool thing because a lot of people,
they're all stemming from crazy.
Yeah, well, exactly, because their common ancestor, murdered a bunch of children.
That's the example I was.
Yeah, well, especially another thing, a lot of people who haven't read any of the stuff out of the EU or anything just assume that Luke and all the new Jedi are all just perfect, but they're really not. They're people, and just like anyone else in the galaxy. And sometimes
that is a claim.
Sometimes
that's a claim I've never understood.
Yeah, well, again, and this isn't meant to be a dig at anyone, but a lot of it is to do with just ignorance. If you haven't read it and you only go by what you see, it's I could see how people believe that, but
even in the context of just the film, that's Luke's entire character arc in Return of the Jedi, that he's struggling with the dark side. and like facing temptation. So I don't really understand the complaints about Luke being boring. When people use this to justify The Last Jedi, I really don't want to get into a spiel about it, but Luke has always been a flawed character.
Yeah. So instead of that, how about we talk about how there's a cool Pelion-class Star Destroyer floating above Ossus? Yeah,
Indeed.
and we basically get a cool little part where all the Jedi are in hiding, and apparently standing like behind a rock, and the stormtroopers are patrolling like right there. It's like, why aren't they in the Jedi Paraxium?
Well, you see, this was George Lucas's idea to CGI a rock.
Ah, yes, CGI some
His vision.
Ossus fauna. But
Indeed.
then we get their little discussion about how, they have to hide, and they obviously can't fight, and
Wolf Stacen's worried about Cade because of his visions.
well, and I really like that. Not only is it because of his visions, but like it's very obvious throughout the entire comic that Wolf cares. He's basically kind of like a surrogate father to Cade, because not only was he his Jedi master, but they've known each other for like 20 years. He was his master and his father's best friend. So like, Cade definitely would have looked up to Wolf as like another father besides his own.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's Wolf has like some of the most expressive pages in this comic book. Like every time he's depicted, he has some emotion on his face.
To me, this is just me. Like, Wolf always just looks sad.
He does. He's always depressed.
Which makes sense, because I'm assuming at this point he's just absolutely just worried about Cade, and he's stuck on this planet and can't do anything. So, like,
well, the galaxy's last hope is a fucking junkie, and he's seen the Jedi collapse completely. There's 24 left, and he's only with like 6.
yeah, and then but from there we get Darth Strife. That's what it was. I was trying to find his name again. The Sith with their convention of having very on the nose names.
Darth Destroyer.
Darth Erderer. Darth Sploder.
Just change the spelling a bit and you're good.
Yeah, pretty much. Which is kind of edgy, but I think it works.
I mean, this is a long run thing where, I mean, God, since the second Sith to be named with Sidious? Is Sidious the second Sith name?
Well, with actual Darths, I think so, but Tales of the Jedi obviously had Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma, who just went by their names.
Yeah, I think Sidious was the first Darth.
Besides Vader.
Yeah. And that's just Insidious, and you have Scion, which is, I'm pretty sure is a word.
Oh no, it's literally just a word. Darth Treya for betrayal.
Betrayal. Tenebrous means shadow. Plagueis has plague in it.
Nihilus is either annihilation or nihilism, but basically both, because that's his goal.
Yeah. They're very on the nose, but, I mean, we're talking about a series that's basically a space fantasy opera about friendship. So it works. It's fine. It's corny.
Yeah, it's corny and it works, but it's also kind of neat that even millennia later, the Sith are still have the same naming conventions.
Yeah, and we've gotten to the point where they're running out of names, so they just have to put 2s and 3s in front of it with Warlock.
Well, Warlock I kind of like because it's like a hereditary position almost.
Oh no, I agree completely. It's very unique.
But yeah, basically the issue ends with Darth Strife with a Y, and you're right, he does have a metal lightsaber.
Yes, metal fidget spinner looking ass.
That is true. I kind of like it because, one, it's unique, and especially from the one Sith, and it doesn't look like any other lightsaber we've seen, which at this point in Star Wars was kind of rare.
I agree. I don't know, I like the uniformity of like the...
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, the Darth Strife, I think, is besides Ashrad, I think he's the first human Sith that we've seen so far.
Yeah, his facial hair is throwing me off.
Oh, you mean the tattoos that look exactly like facial hair?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how the issue ends. And again, issue 17, really cool, ominous cover of Cade with a red lightsaber with his face.
The first two covers are shit, and then you get these that are just like Darth Cade and Darth Vader's meditation sphere.
Actually, now that you mention it, I'd never noticed that he was in that was meant to look similar to that. He's also still wearing Vader's pants.
Indeed. And now he has Darth Vader's cape, so he's like 60% dark side.
Yeah, with the red lightsaber. So yeah, he's like at 65% dark side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it opens up, and I really like the scene. Again, Maladi and Niall play off each other very well, having their conversation about Cade with, Niall kind of just in his own kind of, worry that he's not like important enough. He's like, oh, he's gonna make Cade his heir.
Oh yeah. There's definitely like jealousy seems to be his defining trait, and his interaction with Maladi are great because Maladi's either like curiously depressed or like very dry, and they're probably outside of Crate my two favorite Sith in the one Sith at this point. Warlock is apparently very good.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to
he shines a lot more in the second and third volumes, which will be the next ones up, obviously. But yeah, here he's kind of more a bit player that kind of just doesn't really do as much. But I do kind of like this discussion because it brings up kind of the dual legacy that both the Sith, different legacies that the Sith and Jedi want Cade to live up to. Like, Crate basically wants him to be Vader 3.0, and the Jedi want him to be Luke 3.0.
Yeah, he even talks about the Vader blood that is the reason why Cade is not dead yet.
And pretty much, like that and his healing ability, which is the main reason, obviously. But speaking of Cade, we get to cut to him training, which is I like that. They change his outfit, they change his top, but they keep the Vader pants.
I actually want to go back for a second. Maladi actually brings up that Lord Niall is looking at some ancient Sith holocrons, which is feeding more into the idea that he's being more of an individual than the typical one Sith, which really completely goes against what Crate's trying to establish here. So, it's planting some unique ideas. But yes, I do like Cade's new design.
Yeah, which is basically his outfit, but now his kind of like coppery colored top is now just black.
Yeah, and he's got some red and black is the ultimate color combination
of evil.
Indeed.
But he still has the Vader pants, so missing short of sleeves, he's almost 100% just evil aesthetic. And
Indeed.
I like. Actually, again, different non-York coral lightsaber. Cade has a metal red lightsaber here.
Damn it, he does. They just dropped all pretense.
Well, Cade's special. Maybe they tried to give him a York coral one, and he told him to screw off.
Probably, honestly. We figured out that Darth Talon is definitely an Ataru specialist.
Oh yeah, she literally does a somersault over him and then, swings at him. Cade does a cool Matrix dodge, which is always fun.
I think every panel she's fighting in, she's doing some kind of flip.
Flip or a spin, which again, it's cool because it does set her apart from some of the other fighters we see. Shadow, for example, is very grounded. Like, he doesn't do a lot of flips.
So is Niall.
Yeah, Niall's not doing a lot of that, and then Cade does kind of just whatever.
Yeah.
But they have their little spar, and then it goes on for kind of a while, and then it's revealed very coolly that Talon has a Cortos' gauntlet, which I'm assuming she took. I don't know if it's ever explained, but I'm assuming she took it from that Imperial Knight she killed way back in the many issues ago.
Probably. They're all outfitted with it, aren't they?
Yeah, but that's kind of what I like to think, because it's kind of a cool, like, she took that as a trophy from her dead foe kind of thing.
Yeah, it's also just useful.
And it's really cool because she gets to, like, basically superhero block a lightsaber.
Yep.
And then she stabs Cade through the meat of the shoulder, and it's not a big deal because he just heals it.
And we start to get the... Right now, I think Warlock is the only one to really question Krayt up until this point, which is his job, as Krayt himself defined. And I like the interplay between the two, because Warlock is allowed to be more critical of Krayt than the other Sith, who are just, like, for the most part, blind subservience, whereas Warlock can show, like, genuine concern for him, or offer his own opinion on something.
Yeah, it's very fun to read. Also, a fun little detail that they put in. I like Krayt's throne that he's sitting on here. It looks like it's like Yuuzhan Vong biotech, which is cool because he has the Yuuzhan Vong crab armor.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
I like his little point about how Cade is pretending to be a Sith, but what we pretend to become is what we often become, which I think is really cool because that's kind of what happened to Krayt, as eventually we realize in some exposition that he gets to, that is given to Cade later.
Yeah, this is just the plot of Mean Girls. Damn, that was silent.
I don't follow how this is the plot of Mean Girls.
Well, the main character joins up with the plastics or whatever I can't believe they summarized the Star Wars podcast. And she pretends to be a bitch with those bitches, and then she becomes a bitch. So this is Mean Girls, but Star Wars.
Well, the problem here being I've seen Mean Girls one time and was forced into watching it and wasn't really paying attention. So I'll take your word on that one. But we do cut to B-plot of Calixte and Veed. They have a one-panel discussion about how... oh god, did I put anything about... Oh, no, I did. Basically... Calixte is talking about how Morgan Cord needs supplies. I wonder how Calixte would know that Morgan Cord needs supplies.
Curious.
Very curious.
Also, at the same... I don't blame her for going off, because the last time Veed was with Morgan, he tried to get her to sleep with him. But then we get Morgan coming back up with the crew of the Mynock, and...
Yeah, she shows up with some weapons that... Well, she shows up with... really cool for me again, because I really like the Yuuzhan Vong and all that, but she shows up with Yuuzhan Vong bugs.
And Sin professes... Sev professes Sin professes his love for her. And I think I took a note here that said, what was it? There are sexy MILFs in Sev's area.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's
basically something about more.
Yeah, there's basically Delia like whispers to Jiraiya Sin that's Cade's mom and she's old, and Jiraiya's literally just like, yeah, but she knows what I like.
But she drops 3 dozen of his special talent, expertise, weapons, however you want to phrase
yeah,
that.
Jiraiya's it's noted that he knows how to use the Yuuzhan Vong bio weapons, I guess would be the word. Obviously in a different context than nerve gas. But just because it's just a nice little explanation that there was a Vong who was on the Rav's ship when he was a little kid, and he taught Dryson how to handle him.
It's very cool. I like
Yeah,
that
well,
about it here.
it makes
And
Dry unique because it's established in the NJO books that it's very rare for non-Vong people to be able to use the Vong stuff.
and now we have one. And the Deveronians, like, do they bite?
which is a very like it's a very like justified question.
Yeah. I wouldn't really want to mess around with razor roaches either, but apparently she's a biotechnician, so I assume she deals with Vong
Well, I
technology.
never did they say that she's a biotechnician?
I remember
Oh,
reading it.
I always just assumed that she was like a techie person, and they basically just like super glue some cameras onto the bugs.
Well, how do they do that? It's basically Spy Kids.
Yeah,
But
but
I remember somewhere that being mentioned as her profession. But
yeah, and
they discuss about how they're getting into the temple and they're playing with the bug.
oh yeah, and then Morgan literally just dresses up as a Sith and can just waltz in through the front door. But
Apparently,
I like the image of her like deploying the bugs because she's all in like the Sith tattoos and everything, but you can see that she didn't like. She just still has blonde hair.
could you imagine? She had her hood down.
Yeah,
Just she's got like the Edward Scissorhands hair.
yeah. She has
With
the
all the
blonde hair and still
black
has green eyes, but you know she paints herself red, and maybe the temple guards just like milfs too, so they let her in.
She flashes them and they let her in. She's like,
Oh
go
yeah,
ahead.
pretty much like just classic. And then we get back to the Sith temple where Cade is he's developing a more evil aesthetic because now he has the cape and he's got some shoulder guards and a bracer.
Yeah, for a second I thought he had guyliner on.
Oh yeah,
But it's just the shadows.
the shadows
Oh.
definitely make it look that way.
Could you imagine to tattoo up?
I
It's like, oh, you're a Sith now. All right, here you go.
pretty much, and then we get the exposition of how Crate, kind of found out about Zozan and started his tutelage, and that's kind of where it ends for here, and I like it, because for now, obviously, again, this would have been a bit more effective when you had to wait however long these comics released. I don't know if they were bi-weekly or weekly, and
This is the first mention of Soksan, I believe. She's later referenced in the Book of Sith.
yeah, and she has a very gross aesthetic with her giant fingernails, which is disgusting, and I hate it.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice that. I thought it was like wispy spirit tendrils, but like, ugh.
Yeah. But yeah, basically all it is
Death Strike.
Ashrad became a bounty hunter, was tracking a bounty who for some reason went to Korriban.
Not the best position to go in, but I like how he just lobbed his
Oh
head
yeah,
off.
because the bounty is like, well, I'm gonna tell everyone you're a Jedi, and then everyone gets some good like 80s action one-liners because he cuts the dude's head off and says the bounty's the same, dead or alive.
It reminds me of shit, what's his name? The Star Wars bounty hunter, Clancy Brown, Montrose. Where he's like his introduction, and he's walking up to this bounty, and he's like, "I'm worth more alive." He says, "You're worth enough dead." And just shoots
That's
him.
pretty much here, and then
It's like, this is the villain.
yeah, and then basically Crate finds a holocron that calls out to him, and apparently, well, Ashrad, he's not Crate yet, but apparently the holocron knows his name and calls to him. And
I think this is established before. It's holocrons can call out to you. Until like Rebels came along, it's like, who comes? Ezra Bridger, and that's different to talk entirely.
Yeah,
but his transition here seems really rushed to me. And then it's a page long, and he's like, I want to be a Sith now,
Well,
I guess.
I think it's to set up that you're going to get more exposition later.
Okay, hopefully.
Uh,
Well, this whole first thing with Zarkson came off as like really rushed for
yeah,
me. But we get
yeah, some more PG-13 love scenes,
yes,
and
my OTP.
yep, and then they're
Um,
also just watching it on the Vaughn cameras, and obviously Delia Blue is like, well, what the hell?
I have a specific note about her expressions.
Oh, they're so good.
Um,
Like she looks so hurt in the first one, and then immediately turns to anger, and she throws a box at the wall.
I think she busts a monitor.
Yeah, and the best thing is you can see the Deveronian cowering as she's throwing the box.
I didn't even notice that. She, uh, this is like really excellent use of the medium. I love comic books so rarely use this to their like full potential, especially for comedic value. It's very hard, but Legacy uses it so well. And then we move on, and we're talking about retrieving Cade and killing him if he's a Sith. But Morgan has a lot of faith that he's not. Apparently, it's a lot to go through. Talon is leaving the bed after she has sexy times with
Well,
Cade.
it's not sexy times. It's very PG-13. Like Cade's doing the movie thing that he's covered. You know, his privates are covered with a blanket, and Talon is wearing like a hood that covers everything. Like just it's very PG-13. It's very Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it works.
Well, you can't have Cade's dick hanging out.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately not. But yeah.
But that's what deviants
Yeah.
are.
No.
Moving on.
Yeah, we got to move on from that. But yeah, he basically, you know, they're just she contacts Crate, and they kind of talk about how he's gonna fall or he's gonna die.
Is this where he mentions Quillen? No. Yes. Yes. I served with the Jedi in the Clone Wars. He's talking about Quillen here. So we don't get the name drop, but we know who he's
Yeah,
talking
because
about.
the part that I liked is because again I haven't read the Republic comics, but I know the story of Quinn the Boss, and Crate says that he was pulled back by those who were close to him, but Cade's not going to have those people, and there's no escape. It's very effective, and because
initially I thought this was what they were going to do with Morgan, and that she was like, "Cade, I'm your mother. You have to come back to the light or something." And they don't eventually do this, but I thought it was going to be interesting because Cade has no idea who the hell she is, so he'd be choosing something familiar with like the Sith, because he's kind of a mixed bag, or going off with someone claiming to be his mom. But I do like the name drop here, not name drop, but the reference to Quillen, because if you know about Legends, the EU, and how it references and connects to it, this is a really cool thing, because you know what Craig's talking about without him having to say, well, I served Quinlan Voss as apprentice of Thuln, who was spying on Count Dooku, thought Count Dooku was the main Dark Lord of Sith. You just know it, and it feels very interconnected, like it has continuity.
Yeah, it works very well, and we get to cut back to Ossus, and some stormtroopers are still snooping around trying to find Jedi, and they find him, and then Shadow pulls the old Jedi mind trick on a stormtrooper.
I love Shadow. He's probably my favorite Jedi out of this bunch.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I just love Jedi mind tricks. They're so fun. And he just says, "There's no one on Ossus. It's time to leave." And we get the whole, "Oh, never mind. It was just a shadow. There's nothing here. Time to leave." It's always fun to read and see.
It was a shadow there. But I agree. I'm glad they're not used to excess, where it's just like, oh, they're using a mind trick to get out of the situation. It's fun because it's a rare occurrence.
Yeah, well, because Yeah, you're exactly right. It is very fun, and then we get the Yuuzhan Vong, who obviously have a big warrior culture, saying that we have to fight them like warriors and kill them all. And then Crook's basically just like, know your role, shut your mouth. Bad idea.
Yeah, this is basically why this Vong lost the war. Because the guy's like this. And then we get more depressed Shadow Veil. God, every one of his expressions is
Yeah,
sad.
someone really needs to give him a hug.
Honestly. Um, so we're cutting up to an orbit above Osis with Darth
With a wall.
Strife, who is very angry. And they're like, oh, God. He just goes into it. Blow up Osis. And they destroy
Yeah,
the
they
temple.
destroy the temple, and it ends there. Which again, like the only problem of reading comics this way is there's no cliffhanger because you can just read the next thing.
Speaking of which, let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, issue 18. Again, really cool issue. Which I don't think those two play that big of a part in this issue. But it's still a very cool.
No.
It's still a very cool cover. Yeah, and
renowned.
as actually a side note, I will preface with this is one of my favorite issues of the entire series, issue 18.
Oh, it's definitely one of mine.
I love the opening, Cade in the Embrace of Pain, which is especially cool because I 2-3 weeks ago reread New Jedi Order Traitor, which has a lot to do with the Embrace of Pain. So I just especially love this scene.
I haven't read the New Jedi Order, so I don't know too much about the, but I know about the weapon. So it's really nice getting a visual presentation of, and it's like the Vong have a really unique aesthetic in Star Wars. So it's nice to see the artist's representation of this. I need to start mentioning her by name because Jen Dursema, because she also did Clone Wars, and her artwork just honestly makes the series. It's very
Oh yeah, it's definitely fun reading this series because it has such good artwork. Like, yeah, the story would still be really good without good artwork, but the artwork just it takes it up a whole nother notch and makes it very fun to look at. Everyone's very expressive, and
especially with such visual medium like comic books, you have to have it.
Yeah, and a thing I really like about a lot of the panels and stuff, there aren't really a lot of panels that just have kind of do the comic book thing where they just have a background. Like there's no stuff in the back. It's just like a color. And you're of course going to get that here and there, but a lot of them are very vibrant panels that have stuff going on in the background. Like in the first panel, obviously as Crate is talking to Cade hanging in the embrace, like Warlock is standing there observing, which is like a fun little detail.
Oh yeah. And when you mentioned earlier with the Deveronian being scared of Delilah throwing a crate through a monitor.
Yeah, the art is awesome.
Things that you want to get. Oh yeah.
But here we get Crate kind of does get a little more intimidating in the like last panel of this page, and he's basically like, just shut the hell up and listen to me.
And he goes back into detail.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you about my life
story. Yeah, he basically exactly what I have is Crate exposits more backstory, but I like it because it's fun. It's flashbacks. I like flashbacks, but especially this flashback because it has the Vong. Because I love the first couple pages of narration here. I left for the unknown region, determined to lose myself. I learned unknown was not the same thing as empty. And then it zooms out to oh shit, a Yuuzhan Vong ship. But I love the little detail of how the Force wasn't telling him anything about his attackers.
Oh yeah, because in case you don't know, the Vong are impervious to the Force and kind of like live outside it. But it's again, I like visual representations of Vong technology because it's so out of the norm. So when you read about it, it's kind of hard to tell what everything looks like because usually when you see Star Wars ships described, a Star Wars gun described, you have like this visual in your head as you're reading the novel. But with Vong, it's just alien in
Yeah,
space.
a lot of besides like the official artwork made for like RPG guides and source books and stuff. A lot of how I visualize Vong stuff when I'm reading the NJO novels is a lot of it does come from this book too. And another like really small detail that I like about his little exposition dialogue box is that he'd never seen a ship like the one that engulfed him, which is a very good way to describe it because the Yuuzhan Vong ships are also alive.
I didn't even notice that. That's pretty. I like how that's phrased.
Yeah,
And
then he obviously gets taken down by the Vong because it's like, how do you fight these guys? Like their armor's lightsaber resistant, their amphi-staffs are lightsaber resistant sometimes. And then he gets bugs thrown at him.
No, this bugs. He's fighting 3 at the same time. He strikes one, but it doesn't kill
Well,
him.
I think he
I don't know.
just
He gets raided.
well, he kicks one of them, and then I think the strike from the other one, it's kind of, you know, the crab armor is lightsaber resistant, so he's probably like, oh, what the hell? That should have cut your arm off.
You know, he's definitely.
I'm surprised he didn't mention how cortosis worked.
Honestly.
Yeah, he gets downed, and
It's like,
then we get Vergere, which is just
I'm gonna let you, if you need to, because I don't know shit about Vergere.
Yeah,
Other than
I have a video plan for this, but I hate the retcon that Vergere was a Sith. It makes her character a lot less interesting. I don't like that she was an apprentice to Sidious, because when did he have the time to do that? I don't like how they take her from a multifaceted character with a unique view to being a literal generic rule of 2 Sith who eventually is like, oh yeah, I'm not going to work with you because you don't want to follow the rule of 2. And she basically hits him with the, "Aight bro, I'm about to head out."
See, I have my hopes up because Kratos talking. He says there were claims that she herself was a student of Darth Sidious and fled the galaxy when her attempt to kill him failed. But lies and truth only means to an end for her, as I was to learn. It's like, oh, okay, well maybe she's not actually a Sith.
Yeah, I wish, but unfortunately, that's not how it is. But we do get some cool stuff from Ashrad as he's in the Embrace of Pain, which is a cool parallel to Cade. We also get the horrific tortures about how his existence, to quote the comic, his existence was an endless state of pain dominated by experiments by the Shaper Caste. But they enhance his body, they rip out his eye, and replace his cybernetic arm, which, ouch, to put it lightly.
Oh yeah. He gets a Vong arm transplant. And a Vong beast eye, or a Vong creature, which is green, but he later has like a blue eye that I thought it was a cybernetic. I don't know. Is this the same eye? Give replaced
I'm
again?
pretty sure it's the same eye, but yeah, I think it was just an error on the coloring of his non-normal eye.
Possibly. But then in like his state of pain and the experiments with the Vong, he has a vision of this one Sith. And spouts on to Vergere that I have this new idea of the Sith, and I'm going to remake them, even because the Darth Bane was a doo-doo head. And and Vergere, like you said, is like, 2, it's not really jiving with me. I'm going to peace out.
Yeah. But again, to mention his vision of the one Sith, again, that's one of those iconic like panels from the series that even if you haven't read this on YouTube or Wikipedia or wherever, you've seen this somewhere. It's a very iconic panel.
This is what I knew Vergere from.
Unfortunate.
At least visually speaking. That and the picture of her on around with the Vong.
Oh yeah, again, a very iconic picture. But eventually,
Yeah.
according to Ashrad, some time passes, and then he finally has his opportunity to escape. And I love the description of fire and red ruin marked my path as he's,
It's vaguely edgy.
as he's force lightninging like several Vong to just death.
Yes, which is apparently very effective against. You can correct me on this.
They're kind of inconsistent sometimes on how the force can affect the Vong. Like there is a passage in one of the novels where a character tries to use force lightning on Vong and it doesn't work, which to me doesn't make sense because the lightning isn't the force, the lightning is lightning. So
yeah, it's like a
so unless the crab armor is really well insulated, I much prefer this where like you couldn't force push a Vong, but if you use lightning on them, that's lightning.
Yeah,
no matter how alien you are, if you get zapped by enough volts, you're done.
Yeah.
But he escapes, and I like how this would be a thing to talk about if we ever get around to the NJO series. But I like how he explains that the Vong implants allowed him to use their thing, as opposed to some certain characters in the NJO series who can just use them.
Which I assume is a writing inconsistency.
Yes, but it's not a huge deal. But yeah, he escapes and somehow explodes the ship. I never understood.
Little 9-year-old Annie can do it to a Trade Federation ship. I'm sure Asherod hit.
That's true. But yeah, then he escapes, and there's some really cool panels. The one of him like walking onto Korriban, where he isn't fully in his armor yet, which I really like. And he basically says, he's like, yeah, I could have told everyone that the Yuuzhan Vong were about to invade, but, then everybody would know about the Zith. Indeed. And there's another good reference about how he paid no heed while the Yuuzhan Vong ravaged the galaxy, and they sought to bring Lumiya into the Order, but she sided with Vergere. Gross, that didn't happen. And her creation, Darth Kaitis, I'm not going to get into that. But I love the description of Kaitis. Another Skywalker gone to the dark side, who served their plans unwittingly, who was a Sith lightning rod to attract the Jedi attention from them. That's a very cool point, because obviously the one Sith had, according to Crate, have existed since like the dawn of the beginning of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion in the galaxy. So,
yeah,
like many decades. So they had to stay hidden on Korriban, and that's obviously how they had a new Sith Lord who distracted them and then just hid.
It's like the rule of two Sith existing at the same time as the ancient Sith, with like Khan being an idiot and just openly waging war against the Jedi, whereas Bane works in the shadows. So he's kind of like culminating the teachings of the Sith and like shaping it to his own thing at the same time.
Yeah, it works out really good. It's a really good kind of parallel almost to the rule of two.
Yeah, and we also get the first Darth Warlock tending to him with his stasis.
It doesn't really look like they're tending to him. It looks like they're kind of just staring at him through the stasis pod.
Or that. Whatever. He needs some munchies, or like got him. He needs to be stared at, or like got him. Be good.
Yeah, Warlock's there for all his hibernation needs.
So then we get some details about his views on the galaxy, which I think are very interesting. In that democracy is inherently chaotic, and that the Jedi acquiesce to this chaos because they're unwilling to assert their will over the galaxy, basically, because they believe in like individual freedom. How dare
Yeah,
they?
I'm
But
pretty sure this is where a lot of people, I'm sure you've probably seen this, and a lot of people have seen like alignment sheets where this is where everybody says Darth Krayt is chaotic evil or lawful evil, excuse me, because which I never liked because I don't
yeah,
like putting Star Wars characters on the D&D morality chart, but that's just me. And I think putting him in that, and it's kind of gotten. I hate to bring this up, but some people I've seen on online forums kind of have the Empire thing where they're like, "Well, Krayt wasn't a bad guy because then the galaxy would have had order," and it's gross, and I don't like it. Krayt is not a good guy.
no, he's very much the ends justify the means type of
Yeah,
person.
which is
Means
very
person.
cool, but his ends are also bad as well as his means.
Well, he's like robbing the galaxy of individual freedoms in the name of complete and utter control and essentially peace,
Well,
order.
peace, obviously in
But it's a very
inverted commas.
yeah, yeah, Palpatine's version of peace for a safe and secure society. Uh, but it puts him in a unique position where he's not self-glorifying, but I mean, of course, Krayt's the only one who has the power in the One Sith to do this because his individual passions are his own, rather than his subservient Sith following him.
Yeah. And then he kind of
He's yeah.
no, and then he kind of he basically tells like Cade's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And he basically just tells Cade, "Yeah, you got to heal me." And Cade, it is later revealed, obviously, in I think the next issue or the issue after that, that Cade can see the shadow points of Krayt, but here he's just lying, which brings up a small little inconsistency of Krayt, where he says when he's speaking of Vergere that he could see through her half truths and lies because of his Sith teaching, basically. But then Cade.
In this panel, I just read here that he could see them in Krayt, but he has way too many.
Oh yeah, but I think it's definitely said in the next issue or the issue after that he can basically that he could, but he just I can't. I might be reading it incorrectly, but
We'll see.
that's always what I thought. But I like how he tells Kay that he needs to focus his thoughts and that the embrace will teach him that. Which obviously that's not what I think of when I'm thinking of focusing my thoughts. Like I like to chill out and like read a book or like watch some TV or
Well, you see, the Vaughn space Cenobites, who jerk off to pain. So this sort of thing works with Vong and Sith and the torture.
Yeah, that's true. So then he gets a nice little aside about how the first time that Darth Nihil experienced the embrace, he killed an entire village.
I do like that a lot.
And then he tells him, he's gonna
You could do it.
he's gonna be prepared to take his own dark legacy, but first you will learn despair. And then Cade screams, and then it cuts. Apparently, like I don't know how long. That's one thing about Star Wars is a lot of times you don't get concrete like timelines of how long it is things are happening. Because to me, when I read this, it seems like the next day Cade escapes or tries to escape rather.
Yeah, I don't really know why he's in a cell either. I don't know Talon being.
Well, I think this is kind of using the different definition of cell, where a cell is just kind of like a bed chamber. It's kind of like an older definition of the word.
Maybe.
Or
at the same time, looks like he's sleeping on a rock slab.
Yeah.
Or his clothes. I don't know.
Regardless, he runs away, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, yay, Cade's leaving. Now we can get going." But we go. It cuts to Darth Baladi's lab, which is sad because we see Blue Elephant Jazzman in there, floating in a tank.
I didn't know that. What do they call it?
I couldn't remember, and I can't remember Jazz Guy's name.
God, I don't remember either. I just remember Oh man, the
Oh yeah,
romantic
that's
interest.
exactly what I was thinking. This blue elephant guy is going to be late to his show, man.
Oh no. Uh, but then Talon shows up, and Ken like, "I missed your touch," and she yeets him into her
Yeah,
tanks.
and calls him an idiot, which it seems like the like perfect thing for her to say. Like, oh, he's trying to charm her, and nope.
No, she's not. She's not a dumbass. Uh, and then she brings him before Crate, who is not very pleased.
Yeah, because we cut to the next page, and it's almost comical because it goes from Cade unconscious to Cade being held in the air with one arm by Crate.
Uh, which goes to show you his intimidation factor again. He's pretty strong. It's like Vader.
Yeah, but again, like Crate's body language and face in these, like, he's not yelling at Cade. Like it. And again, reading, like I said, I don't have a voice that I read Crate in, but his tone of voice is kind of like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Like dad kind of thing.
Oh god, that's worse.
That's what I read it as.
Yeah. He like I said, he very rarely yells, but he's pretty commanding in his presence. But when he does,
Yeah,
yell, it's
one
good.
thing I really like about Crate is whenever he's standing or sitting, he's very rarely leaning or slouching. He's always standing very straight, which I really like. It really shows his like domineering and commanding presence. It's a very, to me, it's a subtle thing. I don't know if it was there on purpose, but that's how I always read his body language.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, God, he's Cade squirming in his hand. Like his feet are at Crate's knees. He's pretty tall.
Was Ashrad before becoming Crate, was he tall? Like I'm not sure.
No, he's pretty standard height.
Yeah, so
But,
yeah, the armor makes him tall. He's got
I think he's taller than everyone, but I mean, at the same time, you see him as like this scrawny bounty hunter, and then the Vaughn get him, and then the next thing you know, he's like fucking.
well,
ripped.
maybe the his armor just has some big like disco platform boots.
Maybe.
But yeah, then we get we
probably
do get another.
his volume experiments made him grow.
Sorry,
Uh,
you can.
Probably the volume experiments made him
Yeah,
grow or
that's
something,
kind of
but,
what I assumed. But we do get a thing here that was introduced in Legacy of the Force, which is nice that they brought it in, but it was, again, something in that series that I didn't like, and that's how becoming a Sith demands a sacrifice of a life that matters to you, and I personally never liked that little introduction, but it's nice that they carried it over and showed some continuity that it's actually a Sith teaching.
it's consistent. Not always, but I mean, like you have with Jarek and Kyle Katarn, where he's trying to get Kyle to kill Jan. He's like, but that is not enough.
Yeah,
You have to kill Jan so you can recognize your true power. And
well, to me, that was just more. He was, trying to get him to kill someone in cold blood, and it just helps that it's someone that he cares about. That would drive him more to the dark side. Versus, it's a Sith teaching that you have to kill someone that you care about in order to be a Sith.
oh yeah, no, I don't think it's necessary, but it certainly helps.
Just kind of the way that Legacy of the Force kind of phrases it. Which my criticisms of this by no means are meant to be a slight. It's still one of my favorite Star Wars series, but there are things in it I don't like, but that's a whole different thing. But that's something I didn't like, but it does work because he brings out Hosk, who looks very sad and pitiful.
Almost as sad and pitiful.
Almost. Despite that, this dude's been tortured for probably months. He somehow still doesn't look as sad as Wolf.
Yeah. So Crate's basically like, kill him, you will die, and then Cade calls it because if Cade dies, then Darth Crate will die.
Yeah, it works really good, but then Crate counter bluffs, and he's like, "All right, then the Bothan dies," and I do like it because Cade gets to use his little mantra again that no one dies for him. And then Crate counters again, and he's like, all right, then kill him.
Tell that to my lightsaber.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, though, at this point, this is where I always read that Crate he's getting louder, like vocally, like the way that it's drawn. Like he's starting to get louder and stop using like his inside voice.
Yeah, he's starting to become a little bit angry.
like again in the panel where he says "kill him or you'll die." Like again, when I read that, I always read it as just like a matter of fact statement, like kill him or you will die. Like he's not yelling. His body language is like he's holding the lightsaber. Like he take this and kill this guy. He's not like throwing the lightsaber at him or anything.
Oh yeah, he's gradually getting there because I mean Crate's becoming more desperate as time goes on because he's dying.
He's working against the clock. But then I also like Hosk, even though he's in his almost as depressed as Wolf Sazin state. He's still like, no, don't do that because then you're giving into the dark side. Cade tried to rescue me. Like it doesn't matter. Like, Cade, I forgive Cade and I'm not afraid to die because I'm a Jedi. And then he burns. He just has a burn on Crate. He's like, I even forgive you, Lord Crate. I can feel the fear that feeds you and the pain that drives your anger. You crossed over to the dark side to survive. I pity you and the man you must have once been. And Crate just, I do not pity, and then cuts him in half.
Yep. Just slashes him. Then like Obi-Wan, so he's just like a bro because he does come on first. Surprisingly.
Which I like because this kind of is, in a way, despite the fact that Cade is very, very grumpy after this, it is kind of like a little, kind of his Obi-Wan moment. And we get, I really like where his disembodied voice says there's no death, the Force will be with you, Cade Skywalker. And obviously Crate can hear this because he's just like, no!
Yeah, more acts of defiance. It also calls back to Crate's earlier heritage with him being a Jedi, and he's like, shit, maybe the Jedi Code is wrong.
But then I like Crate again taunting Cade with his "No one dies for me." Isn't that what you said? It's a lie. Your father died for you. Hoss Tralus died for you. Killed by the Sith. And then Cade says, "I'll kill you." And Crate's like, "All right, sounds good. You're angry."
I'm completely okay with this. And then you hear Cade and you see Cole Skywalker.
Yeah, which is a really cool reveal that we finally see him like show up again as a Force ghost, which I really like that it's at this moment and he didn't come in at one of like the Luke visions or something. I think this is much more effective.
Oh yeah, especially with it. He has a really personal connection to Cade, whereas Luke is just kind of like the nagging grandma.
Yeah, pretty much, Grandma Luke.
And it's very important for them to meet up here. And actually, I'm just noticing that they had the same eyebrows. It's a very nice touch from the artist.
Oh yeah, I just noticed that too. Actually, that is really cool.
Yeah, you can tell they're father and son. Aside from the sideburns.
Yeah. Actually, since you mentioned that, just the one thing that I never liked about Cade, and this is just a really, really personal thing, I hate goatees just by themselves, and it always just irks me that it doesn't go anywhere. And that's just me. It's my one little thing. It's a shaggy goatee.
He doesn't even look like he's trying.
Yeah, but
it's like he puts his trimmers on like 2. And then shaves it there, and then shaves everything else.
Yeah,
clean.
And I don't like it. That's just my personal thing. But yeah, Cole has some sick sideburns.
He's a junkie. It's fine.
One thing that
I do like.
One thing that I do like about both Cade and Cole is they both do have like features of their ancestors. Like obviously, Anakin kind of had lighter hair. Luke had blonde hair until it randomly turned like brown in Episode 6. but also I just like that that's kind of kept. Also, obviously his mother had blonde hair, but I like the touch that Cole has red hair because Ben Skywalker and obviously Mara Jade famously has red hair, so I like that that kind of like continues down the family.
Yeah, I was thinking about who Kate and Cole are descended. We talked about it last
Yeah,
time.
so
It's like, wait,
uh,
they were Mara Jade directly?
basically, we can touch on this again. It's not a big deal. It's pretty short. But my personal thing that I think is that Cole Skywalker is like Ben Skywalker's son, so that would make him Luke's grandson. So then Cade is Luke's great grandson. But again, that's just me. It's never ever confirmed, but that's just my little 2 cents on it and my theory. I think the timeline adds up. But again, that's just me. Some people think there's a generation between Ben and Cole Skywalker, and so it just moves everything down. But it would have to be one or the other. I just think one is more plausible.
But then he shatters the case holding his father.
Yeah. Well, the thing, just to touch on really quick, I like how little dialogue there is between Cade and Cole in this in their first meeting in obviously like 7 years. He just says, listen to me. That which can heal can also break. And Cade says nothing except father and just like looks at him. And then he kind of goes for a hug and then grabs the case where his lightsaber is, breaks it with Shatterpoint.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's actually a really good touch. That he's trying to
Yeah,
hug
because
his
like
dad.
he's looking up like right into his dad's face and he's going in for a hug and then obviously he's like, oh, everyone's watching me. Do something cool.
Oh, shit, this lightsaber right here. Okay, I can use.
And it is a very cool panel because Cade
This
breaks it with the Force, throws the glass shards at them, and grabs his lightsaber. Immediately, just stabs, like just runs Talon through.
like almost no effort.
Which
Not at all.
again,
It's the first
in
movie
the
does.
context of this, she just wasn't expecting to get glass thrown at her and then stabbed.
That's fair.
I mean, if someone threw glass at me and then came to stab at me, I'd probably be a little bit flabbergasted.
I don't know. I'm conflicted about it because.
The other thing is,
But then he has like really long duel with knives.
just the other thing is, obviously comic panels aren't told in like real time like a movie is. So I always interpreted these couple panels as happening within like 5-6 seconds. Like he shatters the glass, throws it, and then just immediately stabs Talon. Like there's no 15-second delay. Like he says, "Come here," and then there's like a 15-second like anime stare down or anything. Like despite what the panel kind of makes it look like, I always interpreted it as like it's one fairly fluid motion.
Yeah. I'm kind of conflicted on it, but it's whatever. So then we have the Mind Knight coming in to get Cade, and kind of a reference to Empire Strikes Back with Luke sending out a message to Leia, and Leia saying, "Oh, we had to go back," and there he is, and now they're going up to the top of the Sith Temple in Crate's chambers.
Well, I just like that like
To
they can see this happening through like Crate's big villain window.
yes, is it the same design as Palpatine? Somewhat, if
Well,
not exactly.
Palpatine's window is basically just a big circle with some lines in it. So yeah, maybe he's
Yeah,
taken some
it's the same thing.
aesthetic choices from Palpatine. Maybe it's a common Sith thing to
Say
have
what
a
you
big
will.
window. Maybe that was in Zozan's holocron. It's like, hey, if you're ever in charge, big glass window.
There you go. Well, say what you will about Palpatine. He had interior decorator.
Yeah, he had great
But
taste
then-
if you're an evil megalomaniac.
Indeed. So Cade's fighting Nile now, and this fight actually goes on quite a bit.
Yeah, and the whole time, I have it written down that am I an issue ahead here? Yeah, I am.
I'll go ahead and skip.
No, oh no, sorry. I scrolled a little ahead on my notes. Yeah, he runs Talon through. They go to rescue Kay. They can see him through the villain window. But just I had written down that the whole time that they're kind of having the duel here on the last panel, Krayt is kind of playing the Palpatine, and he's like egging Cade on, which obviously is going to work a lot better on Cade than it did Luke. Because
At the same time, though, I feel like they should just shut up and let them do it, because I don't think the way it's like framed is like Luke would have killed Vader if Palpatine kept his mouth shut. Like, turn to the dark side and kill Vader. And then Luke was like, oh shit, I really shouldn't do it. Palpatine's wanting me to do it. And then Krayt's doing the same thing here. So I feel like if you just like let them be them, it would turn out more in their favor. But you know, evil Dark Lords of the Sith who are also megalomaniacs.
well, I think it works a lot better for Cade than it does Luke. Because Luke was a lot more, despite being in a duel, it was a lot more calm and serene, versus Cade is already kind of unstable. And yeah, he like
just in general.
Krayt is like, destroy Nihil, take your revenge, and Cade's like, yeah, fuck you. When I kill him, you're next.
So they start their fight. We start the next issue, which has.
Yep.
Nice cover.
I actually, my first thing on this notes is this cover would be like 10 out of 10 if Cade's lightsaber wasn't blue. That just.
I'm gonna see if I can get this later. But,
yeah, that because literally, like, reading it, obviously, you know, on my tablet, like you go from Cade with a green lightsaber to Cade with a blue lightsaber, but that's not a big deal. It's still a very cool cover.
It's still a very
It opens up and Morgan's like, hey, you know, she gives the signal to Veed to call off the ties, and she's basically like, she tells Sid, like, you know, don't forget the boom, and jumps out, and Dryson is just in love.
Again, sexy moves in your area. He needs to stop hitting on Cade.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, and then I like Jiraiya's kind of just little comment, like I ever forgot a boom in my life. It's very good. I really like Jiraiya.
Dude, Cade. Like, dude, Cade, your mom's kind of hot.
But yeah, they get this. So, then you cut to Veed, the ugly Imperial with the Hitler haircut. That, you know, they have the signal because Morgan blows up a Sith hangar with the Vong bugs, which is cool because that they rigged them up with the little bombs too. But then we cut back to what we, you know, really care about the most, and that's the fight between these two. And Nihil lands like a backhand on Cade, and Cade flips the switch and goes angry, and then the next panel cuts off Nihil's arm and kicks him into a pillar.
Poor Nihil.
Yeah. But again, that is one thing about comics and people who interpret them, in my opinion, not very well. A lot of people think that, oh, Cade just totally outclassed Nihil. It's like, well, obviously the fight had been going on for some time. It's not like this happened in like 30 seconds. It was like, but that's just a totally different thing. But then
they moved to a completely
room. Well, I don't think it's a different room. I think it's just a different part of like Krayt's big evil room.
I see where we are. Yeah, they're further down in
here. But yeah, then he, you know, knocks him down. He's getting ready to. It shows lightning on his hands, so you're assuming he's going to use his dark transfer and kill him. Despite the fact that Nihil must have a very, very strong neck, because he goes head first into a pillar.
It's characteristic of.
Yes, the Nagi have very, very strong necks.
Almost as strong as Zero.
Yes,
but he starts to use dark transfer, and then Krayt talks too much, and tries to goad him into it like Palpatine, and Cade says no. Krayt says, why? He says, because you want me to.
Cade goes full on like 14-year-old. But I can get it. We've all been there.
He's like an edgy anarchist.
Yeah,
Defy authority.
it's like defy all authority. Um. Oh, this is a really weird. This is a really weird comparison to make, but there's a show called Letterkenny, and there are these characters in it, and they have this motto of, "I hate the world, I hate my parents, I hate myself," and I just can't help but think of Cade at this moment for that, which is very odd because it's a very comedic television show, but it kind of describes Cade.
Yeah. That's just all of Gen Z.
That is true. But yeah, Cade is. He starts to fight Crate, which is cool because we haven't really seen Crate in combat besides a panel of where he's killing some Imperial troopers.
And then immediately gets tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're going head to head now. This is the first time we've had the main villain and the protagonist go at it for 19 issues.
Yeah, it's very cool that you wait this long, like, for this big confrontation.
Oh yeah, and I'll say it in a minute. I'll say it in a minute. Morgan and the crew are doing stuff. She's got a jetpack doing stuff. I don't really know. Okay, there's not really any substance here.
Yeah, it's literally just one panel of them avoiding TIE fighters.
So, Cade and Crate are fighting. Crate seems to be having the
Yeah, that's how I always read it. I always read it as Cade is competing, but he's at this point Cade is never going to win. Like it's just more he's delaying the inevitable by jumping around and blocking attacks and moving and stuff. Like there's no way he could have won at this point.
Yeah, Crate's definitely on the offensive here. He's not really yelling up until the last panel of this section of their fight. He's just kind of talking. Whereas Cade's trying to goad him. We get more of Delilah Blue and the rest of the crew, along with Moff Veed and Skull Squadron. I assume.
That's them because there's Gunner getting ready to shoot down the Mynock.
Yeah. A lot of dogfight. Do you have any commentary here? Because I don't.
Not really, other than I guess kind of the very basic starship dogfights are cool. Like it's not bad to look at, but yeah, it does seem kind of just like page filler. But then we finally get off. Yage orders off the TIE fighters, and then they leave. And then we get Morgan in a page that I really like, where she flies up. Obviously, Cade and Crate aren't going to notice them, and she just says, "Get away from my son," and shoots Crate in the back with apparently a huge ass blaster because it launches Crate through the air.
It reminds me of Harry Potter with Molly Weasley. She's like, "Not my daughter, you bitch," and kills Bellatrix. And here she just blasts Crate with a big fucking gun.
Yeah, and then there's one disembodied panel that says "run." So I don't know if that's Morgan saying that, but it's not blue to indicate that Cole is saying that. So I'm assuming that it's just Morgan is yelling that. I'm not sure.
That's what I'm gonna assume.
But yeah, then we go through.
The great thing about
Crate yells, "Stop! Don't be a fool! There's no escape through that window. It's a sheer drop. If you jump, you die and doom the galaxy to chaos." And Cade, just total, action movie. The galaxy can look after itself and jumps out, episode 5 Luke style. He doesn't know that they're going to grab him. And yeah, he jumps. Lands on the Mynock, which Cade is lucky he's a Force sensitive, or he'd probably be dead.
Yeah. This entire comic book series is just basically Die Hard stuff.
Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison with all the one-liners and the death-defying stuff. But then we get we get a
Before we-
really heartwarming reunion between Dry and Cade.
I do love this.
Like they literally give each other like
They-
a big happy like brother I haven't seen you in like weeks hug.
And they're all smiling and laughing, and they even use 2 exclamation points. Wow, they must be
Yeah.
serious.
And then they go in. I like the little thing where apparently the Wookiee's name is Chak, so that's cool. But
We're really
but-
gonna have to
yeah,
things
but
before we start the next one.
Cade's like, get out of my seat, and the Wookiee's just like, well, my seat, my ship, because they sold Delia and Jiraiya sold them the ship.
And Morgan reveals that she's Cade's mom, and we just dropped it.
Yeah, well, it kind of makes sense at this point for her to be like, because Cade's like, you know, he drops like a PG-13 real world swear. He's like, who the hell are you? And she's just like, oh, I'm your mom. You have a lot of questions, but you know, you're being chased by TIE fighters. This isn't a good idea.
Yeah, we still have like more issues in this run. So they're getting going, and we turn back to Crate.
Yeah, who finally like actually like loses his cool.
I just like how Warlock is taking.
Oh yeah, he just stands there and he's just like oh shit, my boss is berating me. I can't do anything about this.
He's like, damn, Crate, calm down, please.
Yeah, and then we cut to after that we cut like total change of tone. We cut to PG-13 Calixte in the shower being, you know, covered by steam.
What is this coming out of her eye? Or going into her?
Oh, well, we'll talk about it in just a second because she walks out. She's in her bathrobe. It's all very PG-13 again, as all of the interactions between Veed and Calixte are, and he's looking at this little thing, and he's like, "Whoa, what is this? I've never seen this before." And she's like, "Oh, it's a family heirloom." And then they just talk about their plan to find Cade and all that, and she gets ready, and then it's revealed that the
Morgan.
family heirloom is Calixte is Morgan Cord. Wow, what a twist!
I just realized this just now. Oh my god, I feel like a fucking idiot. Oh, this whole time she was Calixte.
Oh, are you're joking, right?
No, this is the first time. I had no idea what she meant at the end of this. I had no idea what was going on.
Oh yeah, no, Calixte is Morgan Cord. It's 10 issues after we reveal that Morgan Cord is Cade's mom. It's revealed that Nina Calixte is also Morgan Cord. Because the blue thing shining onto her eye is basically like a contact that makes her green eyes blue. Because Nina Calixte has blue eyes and Morgan Cord has green eyes, and she's in the shower. She's not shampooing. She's probably putting dye into her hair. And yeah. And apparently she can change her cheekbone structure. Yeah, Nina Calixte is Morgan Cord.
Okay, I don't hate Calixte anymore. She still looks like a bitch, but
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's her mom. Both halves of this first volume end with Nina Calixte and Morgan Cord reveal. They're the same character. What a twist!
what it
Again, it's the same thing as the revealing that Morgan is Cade's mother. This could have been a cool reveal if it hadn't happened 10 issues after it's revealed that Morgan is Cade's mother.
Given my shock right now, you know what? I think this works. I'm gonna disagree.
I guess that's true. Even on my first reading years ago, I didn't like it. It kind of
I
it's
just,
the soap opera thing where it's like, how could this person keep this up for 20 years? She was gone for like, it's stated that she's gone for like a long time when she's initially with Cole and Cade. I don't like it. That's all I can say about it. I'm personally not a fan of it. Not a fan of them being the same, but just it comes too early.
that's fair, I guess. I like it, but especially now that I fucking understand it. Jesus, uh, everything's falling into place.
Yeah, they.
See, this is why we do this podcast because this
Well,
threw me off.
that's
Sorry.
cool. I never thought I. It's very rare that you run into someone who hasn't heard of this kind of thing so far into the comic. That's pretty cool.
Well, that's why I want to read New Jedi Order because I know a lot of. I have a really general knowledge of Star Wars. I can talk about almost any era except for post Return of the Jedi, but even then, I know most of the major events. So it's refreshing coming to this and not knowing things. Whereas I know later on down the line, or I knew that Osterod Head was Darth Krayt, or so on and so forth.
Well, I guess it's cool. You got one of the twists.
Thank God. I'm just a little upset that it came during this podcast. But anyway, are we moving on to 20?
I actually didn't read 20 because it's not part of this volume. So I guess it was just 1 through 19 for me.
Okay, good. Well, I have no notes on 20 at all because honestly, this whole entire issue bored me and I had no idea what was going on. We can cover it in the next one?
I guess this one, it's been very quickly planned that we're just 1 through 19.
All right.
I am glad that it makes it very easy for us because the omnibuses kind of split everything into half very evenly, which works out very well for a podcast. But overall, what were your thoughts on this half of like the first volume? Like, obviously, you've read through it for the first time. I really enjoy it because, besides like a couple little B plot things, like it's very interesting seeing the inner workings of the One Sith. Whereas before, we only ever
definitely.
saw like 4 of the people and never got a real thing other than there are a lot of Sith.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The highlights for me are Locke, Lottie, Niall, getting the background of these characters. I'm really starting to fall in love with this cast or crew rather. I guess cast is fine. But Cade's crew, Sith, everything's getting more development and content, and like we're learning more about these characters. So I'm falling in. I really like the direction this is heading in. This has been really well written so far. I'm very pleased with.
Yeah, the beginning of Legacy is one of the highlights of the series. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the some of the issues of the second volume don't hold up, in my opinion, as well. We do get some big highlights, but overall, the next bit coming up as a bit of a preface for myself, it's a bit of a weak point of the series for me. But again, that's just me.
I know I'm not really caring much for this Galactic Alliance stuff at all, but everything else has my interest.
Yeah, in my opinion, again, there is a fair amount of B plot stuff coming up in the next, but it's interjected with, of course, the stuff that we all know and love with Cade and his crew.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it though. I'll probably berate you with questions.
Of course, such is life, and hopefully, there is some other stuff that of course is going to be very fun. But overall, again, issue 18, which is the second to last one in this volume. Like I said, it's one of my favorite bits of the entire series and of Star Wars in general. Just the way that Crate tells his own story, I mean, thing with Vergere aside, like reading that is just very fun.
I wish I didn't know that Osterad Head was Crate. Because, I mean, imagine reading this for the first time in 6, and you get this reveal, and then you just understand how this character came from something you read about in the comic books with Anakin to becoming the next major ruling Dark Lord Sith to completely change things. It's very, I would have liked the shock value in it, but like I said earlier, it's like rereading it on like, it's like a second reading where you can see all the details and everything leading up to this point where you're like, okay, this is clue is pointing to this, here's a little subtle hint to this, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the biggest like fun parts of the whole issue to read, because the way, and again, it speaks to how well Crate is written as a character. Like, he's not telling this like in an evil way. Like, he's literally just having a conversation with essentially his prisoner, but like he's not using like a lot of big evil words. Like, he's almost talking to a peer.
Yeah, and he's not trying to just assert his will over the galaxy because I want power. He's like he has this laid out goal of complete order, and that's impossible with the Jedi, and it's impossible with morality. So he's finding his own ends to create something he thinks is better for the galaxy. Because he's like, when Cade is leaving, he's like, "You're gonna doom the galaxy to chaos if you let me die."
Yeah, and
I believe he believes that himself.
Yeah, it is very refreshing to have a villain who has these goals that are obviously, like, in his own mind, very altruistic and for the good of everyone, but obviously the ends wouldn't justify the means, because the ends would have been bad, and the means are even worse.
It's not really sympathetic or relatable, but it's very understandable.
Yeah, like, obviously there's all this chaos in the galaxy, and this guy's like, all right, well, I'm going to fix this by stripping away everyone's freedom.
Yeah, and it's a very unique taste, too, for Sith, because usually Sith and power just devolves to me. Which I love with Palpatine, because he's such a fun character, but after a while, these other characters, it just kind of devolves from there, unless you do something with Darth Ruin, who just completely flips Sith philosophy on its head and becomes his own unique entity himself. But I really like all the One Sith.
Yeah, they're all very fun, and despite the fact that they're all supposed to be uniform, you very quickly see that they're just not.
Yeah, I was about to say that they're all very distinct. It's really ironic. But yeah, I've had a pleasant time reading this.
Yeah, and I look forward to going through and doing the next part when we get around to it. Hopefully, now that my work schedule is figured out, hopefully we can bring the parts along. And as I have said, I do have a couple videos planned that hopefully, again, now that I have my work schedule figured out, I will be able to put out. And as I said, one of them is a kind of a rant on the handling of Vergere. But you have any stuff you'd like to plug here for your channel before we head out?
I'm writing a script how to make the Xenomorph terrifying again after that has been AVP Requiem, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant. So, trying to resurrect the Xenomorph as the terrifying creature it is. Looking to do more Star Wars content on my channel. I don't know where everything's headed, and possibly some verses down the line.
Well, as we both said, just be on the lookout for both of our channels here for more content, and we will see you next time.
Adios.